MC Benny.
Come on, East Africa. It's a party.
Tell them. Afrika Mashariki. Twaja pamoja.
From country to country, yeah. We gotta work together. We are leaders now. Aiming high for the better. Together. To make our nations greater. Now sharing to empower. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, let your dream be a reality. We will lead, let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people with ability. Here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need, together transform our community as we see light and a bright future. Let's join hands for youth and women.
Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana, vijana vijana toka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini? Vijana wote.
East Africa's largest youth leaders gathering. 2019 Unique Summit theme was Youth at the Crossroads, Migration, Participation and Access to Opportunity.
You are welcome to ULEAD 2019, leaving no one behind. According to data, the world is a young world, and in particular, Africa is a young continent. So we are wondering, why can't young people take over that region?
We think that the moment is now. We think that the potential exists. We think that you can actually make a difference and you can actually take this region to the next level.
The youth are not the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of today. And political seats are never given, they are taken.
So can we seek to address that, such that at the end of the day, we're ensuring that we are getting rid of emerging oppressive practices that end up marginalizing youth further, including the young women that we as women have in our houses as domestic workers?
I myself, being a young person, I think I came here not just to represent the open society, but also to be among the participants and learn from other people.
We all need peace and security to be able to do whatever we want to do. Remember one thing, the average age of leaders and politicians in Africa is about 60 years of age. You are not there. And you can never get to 60 years of age if you are used for their purposes.
So you need to understand you have the capability to engage and do anything, including being presidents of countries.
So I encourage you to share your ideas, experiences, and make the most out of the next few days. But I'd like to leave you with a quote from an American author called Carl S. Buck. She said, "The young do not know enough to be prudent, and therefore they attempt the impossible and achieve it generation after generation." It is your moment. It is your moment, and you have all reasons, legitimate reasons, to claim your space. We are not wise enough to give it to you, so you have to claim it. Claim your seat.
If you want to ensure that things work well in our countries, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, build the judiciary and work towards building that to work.
If youth in East Africa want to lead, my own suggestion is that you seize it. Stop agonizing, organize.
Day 1, Youth in Politics, East Africa's Under 40 Political Leaders Forum, Reinventing Leadership for East African Millennials. The forum focused on examining East Africa's current political narrative, attitudes and practices. It assessed whether the political policy choices and priorities adopted by East African leaders embrace the legitimate aspirations and voice of youth in the region and respond to their needs and demands. Also discussed was the vulnerability of youth to conflicts in the region, the role youth can play in peace building, ensuring sustainable security and stability in East Africa.
Is that politics is invariably personal. And that means that when people get into politics, you get brought down to the ground level really fast.
Encouragement to the youth is that nobody is going to get you down. Nobody is going to tell you that there is a seat somewhere. You have to seize that.
Let's see ourselves as problem solvers. If you are an IT person, kindly go use your expertise and solve the problems that is hitting our community.
Outcomes launched the first ever East Africa Under 40 Political Leaders Forum to now be held annually. Initiated the process of forming an East African Youth Manifesto and a campaign on the East Africa Youth Want. Initiated a youth leadership and mentorship program, the first cohort to be admitted in 2020 for serving and aspiring young parliamentarians working together across the region. Created a network to connect ULEAD alumni with mentors and mentorship opportunities to inspire alumni to compete for elective positions elections in the next election cycle across the EAC partner states and working together towards peaceful elections to avoid election-related violence and insecurity. Initiated a biannual country-by-country and regional biannual youth political leaders performance peer review mechanism for holding elected youth representatives accountable to themselves and the youth constituents they represent. Day 2, Youth in Business and Enterprise, East Africa Under 40 Business Leaders Forum, Globalization. Has globalization lost its steam? The forum was dedicated to discussions on youth and cross-border trade agreements in Africa, the EAC Common Market Protocol implementation, its successes and shortcomings in pursuit of youth-centered cross-border business facilitation in response to youth unemployment challenges through enterprise and innovation.
We need to define, as far as globalization is concerned, we as African, what do we have to offer?
And I think one of the key challenges I personally had was I did not think big enough, fast enough.
We need to change our mindset about our own products.
Workshop. A number of workshops were facilitated by ULEAD consortium members. Globalization and regionalism, impact of current trends and attitudes on East African young people's business aspirations and the future of work. Bridging youth skills gap, recognition of prime skills and youth labor mobility. Migrants and refugees, improving a world on the move. Artificial intelligence, machine learning and the future of work, skills of the future. Youth embracing leadership roles and inventing youth-led accountability. The status of young women in cross-border business in East Africa, enabling and hindering factors. ULEAD Innovation Hub, insights on how to move from an idea to a business. Outcome, launched the first ever East Africa Under 40 Business Leaders Forum to now be held annually. Identified and documented were a set of youth-specific policy and capacity gaps faced by youth business leaders attempting to do cross-border business within the EAC. Consensus on key interventions for creating an enabling environment for youth-led cross-border business and enterprise innovations from a youth business leader's perspective. Facilitated the formation of a network of young CEOs and entrepreneurs across the EAC. Agenda for establishing the East African Fellows Program, a young professional skills exchange program aimed at promoting labor mobility and recognition of prior acquired standardized skills in East Africa. And yes, the climax of the day was the CEO networking dinner, which cemented intergenerational business relationships between young CEOs, young political leaders, ULEAD summit partners, government representatives, and policymakers. Day 3, post-summit agenda. The day was dedicated to creating a strong alumni network, the ULEAD Action Network, and the agenda of action based on the outcome of the national level pre-summit events and the summit. This resulted into a regional common agenda of action and country-specific interventions for each of the countries.
ULEAD is not here to support Museveni or Bobi Wine. ULEAD is for us to learn and say, hey, how can we make a change?
Informed by those key 4 ambitions, which are long term, we ask ourselves, how do we get there? The only way we can get there is
Good morning, good afternoon, Excellencies, Honorables, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, marhaba, bienvenue, karibu, and benvindo to all Africa High-Level Virtual Roundtable on AfCFTA Youth Inclusion, where we will be discussing with prominent leaders from different sectors why African youth should care about the AfCFTA and what African governments, development partners, private sector, academia, civil society, and other actors can do to enable meaningful participation and maximum benefits of AfCFTA to African youth. My name is Sodfa Daji. I'm the Strategic and Technical Advisor for Global and Continental Engagements at ULEAD Africa, and it is my honor emceeing this high-level virtual roundtable. To all the participants, welcome. I will please request that we keep our microphones muted to enable an easier and clearer conversation, as well as supporting the translators. Also, we want to know where you are from. So please write down your name and country. This is a great opportunity to showcase how, despite the pandemic, we are able to come together and discuss the most pressing challenges from Africa and beyond. Let me please provide some context before we dive into the conversation. MSTCDC ULEAD Secretariat, in collaboration with GIZ-AU and strategic partners, youth-led and youth-serving organizations across Africa, are implementing the AfCFTA Youth Inclusion Accelerator Project, namely the Jeunesse Africaine contre la corruption et pour la transparence for Central Africa, Southern Africa Youth Forum and Southern Africa Youth Council for Southern Africa, Youth Hub Africa for Western Africa, and Nile Youth Development Actions for North and Horn of Africa. These are the continental collaborating entities with whom we are implementing this project. ULEAD is Africa's flagship youth leadership development program, seeking to unlock youth leadership potential for a prosperous region and continent. ULEAD is a collective action youth program hosted by MS Training Center for Development Cooperation and East African Community Youth Ambassador Platforms in Arusha, co-owned and supported by ULEAD Consortium of state and non-state partners. And we work in the spirit of United Nations Agenda 2030 and the African Union Agenda 2063. 2 focus areas define ULEAD's program: youth in politics, how youth leadership can be entrenched, and youth in business, how youth can meaningfully engage in entrepreneurship and business. One of our mother organizations is the MSTCDC, which history traces back to April 1967. The center progressively grew to incorporate training of civil society practitioners, and MSTCDC offers training programs for the civil society sector in Africa to enhance their ability to influence democratic governance, equitable, sustainable, and transformative change on the continent. As part of the AfCFTA YAP implementation, ULEAD has carried out a series of regional consultations with youth leaders and policymakers to inform a continental scoping study on African young people's awareness on the AfCFTA and their perceived role as stakeholder in its implementation. This high-level virtual roundtable on AfCFTA youth inclusion is the climax event to the ongoing regional roundtables. The findings of these intergenerational conversations are part of exciting forthcoming activities as part of the overall project. In fact, following the continental scoping study on youth perspective on AfCFTA, we will be facilitating a continental innovation idea contest through a continental essay and debate competition. We will be leading continental digital consultations. We will be hosting a continental young leaders summer school on AfCFTA. We aim at establishing a continental network of young business and political leadership, as well as establishing a continental digital help desk for young business leaders. Lastly, a one-time virtual African-European Trade Facilitation Exchange Forum for African and European youth and policymakers. Well, to remain updated on the project and the forthcoming opportunities, please head to our social media channels and follow us. This is just the start, and we very much look forward to engaging you in this project and beyond. So without further delay, I would like to invite Ms. Makena Mwabobia, Executive Director of MS Training Center for Development Cooperation, for the welcome remarks. Following the remarks, Ms. Makena will hand over for the ministerial address, an exposition that will be made by Honorable Filson Abdullahi Ahmed, Minister of Women, Children and Youth of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. So Ms. Makena, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Sadfa, and good afternoon and good morning, wherever you're taking this call from. My name is Makena Mwabobia, as you've been told, Director, MSTDC Arusha, and very, very pleased and happy to have all of you on board. That have made it possible for us to be able to engage at this high level. Particularly, I want to thank the youth, but before that, I want to say all protocols observed. And I just want to say my greatest appreciations to the young people of Africa for their resilience and for their persistence in terms of wanting to be included and to take part in this critical discussions and shaping of the Africa agenda. I want particularly to say thank you to the young people, because we know that Africa is a young continent looking at 65% of the population, and knowing that it is the responsibility of governments, private sectors, partners to ensure that the young people are supported to understand the Africa scenario, and particularly in terms of the economy, so that when young people are participating, they understand what challenges they are going to be faced with. But again, I want to say that I'm excited because apart from accessing the economic opportunities, there's also the issues of decent work, there's the voice of the young people, and this must be taken as an holistic approach so that Africa is addressing each and every angle that affects the young people of Africa. So then when agreements are done, young people need to be included, not by demand, but that it is the right thing to do. So I want also to recognize that we have challenges in Africa, and I want to mention just two to say that the infrastructure challenges, when we talk about infrastructure, including IT, we need also to think about the unaffordable credit when we are talking about these are challenges, yet that should not stop us from the determination of developing our own solution, believing in them so that we are able to take them forward. I just want to say that if we believe in our own solutions, if we get together as we already have, and as Sodfa said, we are looking at this from the continental level, then we must also ask our governments to facilitate the frameworks and the policies to make the environment conducive for the implementation of such agreements as the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And therefore, even as I finish, I want to say that we must engage and hold our governments to account, our private sector, agreements is possible. Because I'm saying that if Africa governments do not come together to ensure that the frameworks are there, then the frustrations will continue. But because we are determined, we have the resilience, I want to say, let us use our own expertise as we are doing. Let us be genuine when we come to the table to ask ourselves the key questions. Why does this matter? What is my role? Who needs to come here? I think we are looking at an Africa that is going to use its own resources to solve the issues that are affecting and particularly affecting the young people of Africa. So as even we engage, let's remember that the holistic approach to development needs also to be at the center of discussion. So without much ado, I want to say that I wish you the best, and I want now to take this opportunity to invite the Honorable Minister Fisan Abdullah Ahmed, Minister of Women, Children, Youth, Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, to take over and give us our opening remarks. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you again to everybody for joining us. Happy discussions. Honorable Minister, over to you, please. Solfa.
Yes, thank you very much, McKenna. I'm trying to figure it out if the Honorable Minister is online. I would truly appreciate if the team could provide feedback. Otherwise, we should wait for her. In the meantime, we can proceed. Okay, I've been informed that Honorable Minister is not online yet, so I will proceed in the meantime with the first high-level panel. In the meantime, thank you very much, McKenna, for kicking off the conversation. And I'm confident this is such a buzz that will drive our conversation and overall exchange. Indeed, I'm honored to start the first high-level panel for policymakers, development partners, and eminent cross-border business leader. In this panel, we are honored to hearing from Ms. Emily Njeri-Mburundoria, the Director of Trading Services and Intellectual Property of the AfCFTA Secretariat, Ms. Iman Ahmed, E-Commerce Advisor Pan-African E-Commerce Initiative of the GAZ-EAC, Dr. Joel Catego, Strategic Advisor to the Assistant Administrator and Regional Director of UNDP Regional Bureau for Africa, Dr. Josephine Ngure, Senior Country Manager, East Africa Region of the African Development Bank, Mr. Mustafa Njie, CEO of TAF Africa Global, and Ms. Ngone Diop, representing the Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Africa. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining the first high-level panel. I hope all speakers are online. Miss Emily, can you hear me? Are you online?
Yes, thank you very much. It's just that we are having so many meetings, so you have to keep thinking which meeting are you at this juncture. But I was just reminding, I'm happy to see my friend Dr. Catego from the UNDP, my young friend Iman from the EAC Secretariat. So it's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm not sure whether you want me to make a PowerPoint presentation or you will prefer I just speak off the cuff. So just to you, Madam MC, to let me know which one you prefer.
Actually, Miss Emily, first of all, thank you so much for joining. And we understand we are jumping from a Zoom meeting to another. So it's really exciting to have you here. I actually have one specific question from you, which came out from the regional consultation. So one of the promises that the AfCFTA seeks to deliver is an enabling environment for youth-led cross-border businesses and innovation. For starters, what does the phrase an enabling environment practically mean for such youth-led businesses?
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that question. And If you may recall from the assembly meetings that we have had, and assembly meetings are the meetings of the heads of state and heads of government for the African continent, they have clearly indicated that women and youth are going to be at the core of the implementation of the AfCFTA. And to this end, we are to develop a protocol that is going to take care of issues or address challenges that the youth and women actually face in their work in terms of trade across the African continent. So maybe just to mention that, yes, at the core of our implementation work will be to ensure that we include women and young Africans, as we like calling them, in the implementation of the AfCFTA. And the protocol, and maybe this is where I need to mention that we hope that the protocol that is to be developed will have substantial elements and include views from the youth and from women to ensure that there is inclusion, full inclusion of youth and women in the implementation of the AfCFTA.
Thank you very much for providing clarity. And to the participants, if you still have any question, please drop on the chat. Before I would like to proceed with the panel, and I'm sure that at some point we will be able to have an exchange and conversation between panelists. I would like now to invite Miss Iman Ahmed. Miss Iman, are you online?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Good afternoon, Miss Iman. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm well. Yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining. And I have a question for you that came out actually from the Southern Africa Regional Consultation, which took place last week. The participants were asked to name an item they had bought online, which is made in Africa and had been bought online from an African country. Almost all the panelists admitted that it had been difficult to purchase such a product online. What do you think hinders Africa's e-commerce ecosystem? As an e-commerce expert, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for a question. It's an interesting question, and it's an area that's e-commerce is an area that's fairly new in Africa. It's just starting to take off. It's still very nascent, and countries are, you could say, at different levels of e-commerce development and adoption. And even when you look at the market structures, they are vastly different. Now, already there are fundamental challenges on the African continent that have been affecting traditional commerce, like, let's say, logistics, because of the poor infrastructure we have. In the East African region, for instance, almost, I think, 40 to 70% of the cost of a good is as a result of the high cost of logistics. So because of these factors, like, let's say, poor logistics, lack of postal addressing systems where, you cannot do last mile delivery, it becomes more expensive because the market is very fragmented. The people who provide these services are also very fragmented. As a result, it becomes very challenging to streamline the whole entire e-commerce process and ensure that you're able to reach as many markets as possible. And maybe if I could give an example is Jumia. With e-commerce, you require scale to be able to be profitable and keep prices low. But e-commerce in Africa is very expensive due to some of the challenges that I mentioned before. And because of that, Jumia is finding it very difficult to operate. You can see it's entering some markets and exiting very quickly and then expanding considerably in other markets. And this just kind of signals to you that the level of e-commerce adoption, when you think of the consumers and when you think of the micro, small, medium enterprises that sell on these platforms, is variable across countries. And as a result of that, it's difficult for e-commerce to expand and reach far markets. Like the African continent in itself offers a basis for a large market. We could see how successful e-commerce has been in China, for instance, and how e-commerce has been successful in the United States. But in other countries, it's struggling because of the small population and the small number of people to cater to. But the moment you start thinking globally, you start thinking of more of continental scale, then it makes more sense for e-commerce to kick off. Therefore, governments actually need to take deliberate measures to try and tackle some of the challenges that are facing e-commerce, like the infrastructure issues. The platforms themselves are finding it very difficult to operate, in the sense that a certain report highlighted the fact that a lot of e-commerce companies are starting out on the continent, but more than 70% are making losses. And that's very, it's very sad, because it also signals that the consumers are really not adopting e-commerce due to various challenges. Any person who tries to buy something online will tell you of the high costs associated with an online transaction, even when you're buying locally. So that then makes, it's kind of a deterrent for consumers, because if I can buy a product cheaper at a store, I would rather go there, because again, our disposable income is not so big. So I want to save as much as I can. So I hope that kind of provides context to the question you asked of the challenges that we face.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ms. Iman. And I will revert to you very shortly. As a young woman and an expert, I'm sure that our participants would like to hear the insights from you. In the meantime, I would like to welcome Dr. Joel Catego. I know Dr. Joel has a very busy agenda, so thank you very much for joining us, and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Soja.
Nice having you, Dr. Joy. The same for you. The question was shaped and tailored during our regional consultation, and I hope that you can shed a light into this, as you have participated in the AfCFTA processes for quite a while now. So the question African youth are asking is, will the AfCFTA become just another typical agreement signed by our leaders, which is rich but lacks true impact and implementation at grassroots? What's your take on that? Dr. Joy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Soja. I'd like to start by thanking ULEAD for this incredible work that you're doing. Congratulations. I'm so excited to see Ms. Emily Mburu, Director of Services at the AfCFTA Secretariat, and really one of the best brains we have on trade and services globally. So Emily, it's a pleasure to see you. I'm excited to see my students over the years. Amen. So proud of you. Keep going. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, when heads of state agreed to the Abuja Treaty in 1991 to establish an African Economic Community, and when heads of state in 2015, June, asked the African Union to fast track implementation of what we called the CFTA at the time, they saw you. They saw Africa's young people. Because I think something is powerful about what's happening today, that you are not letting it pass by. You're not letting it become just another treaty. And so the short answer to your question, Soja, is it will not be just another treaty because of initiatives like this, like ULEAD. I'll tell you why you must make sure that it doesn't happen. One, because when we look at Africa's trade with the rest of the world, it is locking in a system where you're at the bottom of the value chain. So you give your coffee, you give your cotton, you give your lint, you know, you give the base, you're not adding value. And we've all grown up knowing what those statistics mean. They mean lost jobs, they mean delayed development. And yet when we look within Africa, within intra-African trade, we see something more interesting, even if it's just 16 to 18%. The inside of that is actually value addition, is diversification, is trade in chemical products, inputs, manufactures, agro-processing, clothing, textiles. It tells you that there's something about intra-African trade that can take off faster, to leapfrog, to accelerate the continent's development. Now, how do we make sure it's not just another agreement? I'll tell you what we should be modeling. And when we think about modeling, we're not talking about walking on the catwalk. We're talking about taking up a persona as youth, as young people, that will make sure that it's not just a paper tiger. So I'd like for us to model detail in terms of the depth of what is in the agreement. I'd like for us to model production, because those are the goods and services that will be sold. And then I'd like for us to model advocacy, as the lady that spoke at the start spoke about. How do we model depth? You have done an incredible job trying to traverse the continent to find out what's exactly the knowledge base on this agreement. Your findings tell us that 31% of Africa's youth know about the agreement, 69% don't. So for me, that's positive, because you're starting a conversation. But let's ask another question. What are the 31% doing with that information? Now, our trade agreement ecosystem has spaces for this sort of engagement, spaces for policy dialogue, spaces for academia, spaces for civil society. But ultimately, it's a trade agreement. So the knowledge we need to have right now is onefold. What is the depth of this preferential market? What's in there? If I want to produce, what's in there? We need to find that out. The second point we need to find out is model production. If indeed we have preferential access in these goods, products, and services, we need to prepare the production to get the goods on the shelves, which is not easy. It's an ecosystem of production. How are youth positioning in production? And then finally, we need to model the question of advocacy. It will not be automatic. The enabling environments are critical. The laws, the rules, the regulations, the facilitation of trade, the trade-related infrastructure, the trade policy, the trade finance, the factor market integration. It is for you to make it happen. So all of this to say, the AfCFTA will not suffer the fate of other trade agreements because of you. But it is not only in talking about what is there, it is in utilizing the opportunity and making it happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy, and I hope that all participants are grasping this energy that you are giving us, and definitely the free trade agreement has the potential to be more than a document, and it's our all duty to be informed. And that's the reason why we are building this platform. We would like to inform, but foremost bridging the gap and making sure that young people can interact with experts as yourself. So thank you, Dr. Joy. And I would like now to ask to Dr. Josephine Ngure, Senior Country Manager of East Africa region of the African Development Bank. A question specifically on the fact that the African Development Bank has a pivotal role to play in facilitating the AfCFTA Secretariat in 2019 by extending an institutional grant, and also has the 50 Million Women Speak initiative. The question young Africans are asking is, they want to play a role in support to the AfCFTA implementation, but they lack scale-up capital. It's like the entire credit structure is skewed against them. What is the African Development Bank doing to provide these credit facilities to youth-led businesses? Dr. Josephine, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me just check that you can hear me. Maybe you can just put your thumb up. It's very good to be with everybody this afternoon, and thank you for inviting the bank to be part of this very important conversation about how the youth can benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area. But more importantly, and I think this is what Dr. Catego has said, what the youth can do to help themselves to benefit from the implementation of this agreement. And I do really like the passion with which she spoke and the confidence with which she outlined the issues that are in front of us. And I would like to echo that confidence. I'd like to say that it is a time for the youth to think about the prospects in a positive way, to think about this being a glass that is half full and not half empty, and to engage all of us in taking this conversation forward. But specifically to your question, it is very important, and we all know, and I think everybody connected knows that the youth face significant challenges when it comes to the business space. There are not just the challenges of skills that have been talked about again and again, but the undue disadvantages that they face when they try to raise funding for their businesses. And this is where the African Development Bank really sees one of the opportunities for us to continue supporting youth businesses. As you know, it's not just the loans. When we have these conversations about access to finance, there's usually a tendency for everybody to think we are talking about access to the loans that the traditional commercial banks can extend to the businesses and the private sector. But it goes beyond that. I think it's a question of the menu of funding instruments that we can avail to the youth businesses to help them address the multitude of challenges they face. We need to be able to give them some equity, some risk capital to expand and start their businesses. We need to be able to find useful and valuable guarantee instruments that can be used by youth businesses to mitigate risk and reduce the risk premium that they face in the market. We need to be able to support them with grants for capacity building, which is something that is really in short supply across the continent. But the good news is that the African Development Bank actually does have quite a number of initiatives that address the financing challenges the youth are facing. I'll give you one example. We have a program that is being implemented at present that is called Boost Africa. This is a program that we are implementing in collaboration with the European Investment Bank. Its objective is really to create a pool of equity funds that can address end-to-end financing needs for youth startups. And through this, we hope we can build between 25 and 30 equity funds over a 7 to 8 year period that would avail the funding that we need. And I would say, I would encourage every youth that's connected to spread the word. This is a very important and new initiative that the bank is implementing and addresses some challenges of venture capital fund, the high risk capital that the youth are desperately looking for that can be accessed through the Boost Africa Fund. We also have a number of funds that are targeting capacity building. For example, we have recently launched the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, and some of you might be familiar with this. This is a fund that is hoping to leverage up to $3 billion for funding to women and especially youth young women businesses across the continent. And inside this, you have components of a guarantee scheme, you have a grant component, you have a fund that's targeting women business capacity building. And this is something that we hope will help African women leverage all the opportunities that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement has to offer. And just, we have quite a menu of financing instruments that we're working on, but all these are-
I would like to question Dr. Josephine Kure soon about if the...
sorry, I thought that was...
I need to ask a question to
Sorry, Dr. Josephine, for the interruption. Excuse me, we have set ground rules. We say that after the panels, we will have a Q&A session. Kindly keep unmuted, also to help the interpreters. Dr. Josephine, apologies, the floor is yours.
So very quickly again, I was going to mention just a couple of other funds that we have within the bank that are targeting the youth and youth businesses. We have a youth financing African private sector enterprises. And we also have a number of other funds that are embedded in the, as I said, in the AFAWA, in the Affirmative Finance Action for Africa initiative. All this can be accessed through our website. And in addition to that, they complement our traditional lines of credits that we have been extending to financial institutions across the continent. And these lines of credits usually come with a condition that we see the benefit also going to the youth. We will usually have a specific proportion of this funding that we would say should go to the youth. I would like to say to the youth connected here that we do not see as much uptake as we would like from some of these lines of credits. And we fully understand why sometimes this is the case. But I would also like to say this is now the opportunity for us to re-engage on how we can ensure that the significant amount of money that the bank is extending to the financial sector across the continent, labeled lines of credits for the SMEs, is reaching the youth businesses. We need to reflect, we need to think very carefully, what are the challenges that the youth have been facing in accessing this funding? What can we do together to ensure that they can access this funding? But as I said at the beginning, one of the challenges has been the lack of the complementary financial instruments that need to accompany the loans that come with the lines of credits. And now we do have that varied menu of instruments, and hopefully we will be able to use all these instruments and support youth businesses across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Josephine, for shedding a light on the work that the African Development Bank is doing. I would like now to invite Mr. Mustafa Njie, known as the Youth Man. Mr. Mustafa, hello, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. How are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much for your energy, but foremost for being here. A quick question. Your business operates in 8 countries across Africa. We are sure it was not easy to start a cross-border business, and the AfCFTA seeks to make setting up businesses like yours easier. So what advice can you give to youth-led businesses and policymakers as they seek to harness the promises in the AfCFTA? The floor is yours, Mr. Mustafa.
Well, thank you very much. Let me first start by thanking you again for inviting me to this platform. And I would also like to thank my fellow panelists, especially the previous speakers. It's quite educative on what they've emphasized on. Doing business across Africa is not easy because there's quite a number of challenges, especially when it comes to indigenous businesses. So my advice to young businesses, as we've said over and over again, is the acquisition of skills. You know, you must acquire as much skills as possible, because despite the fact that, you know, the AfCFTA, you know, creates opportunities, we're still competing with the other foreign businesses, non-African businesses. And that's really where my question will come in, because African countries can also sign protocols that governs business at a global level. So while it's an opportunity, yes, to do business, which had already existed, we're still going to have challenges in competing with other foreign businesses. So my advice really is on competitiveness. Because let's take a good example like the business I do. I mean, as you know, I am in real estate development. No matter how good an agreement we have that we have signed, you know, amongst policymakers, presidents, governments, at the end of the day, goods needs to be competitive. So we need to ask ourselves, will I, for example, buy doors from my next door neighbor in Ghana rather than buy from China if it's more expensive or if the quality is inferior? So really my advice is that whatever the youth are doing, they need to be very competitive. You know, competitiveness, not that just because we've signed an agreement, therefore one needs to patronize order or is another opportunity that comes up. Again, we need to engage policymakers, making sure that all these very nice documents that are prepared and discussed around, you know, meeting rooms, conferences, and so on, are implemented. Because we have seen examples on sub-regional organizations that have signed protocols, for example, the ECOWAS bloc or the other sub-regional blocs. You often have so much challenges when you want to move goods from one country to the other. For example, in ECOWAS, I mean, there's the free movement of persons and goods, and the protocols have been signed. But when you get to a border, trying to move goods from one place to the other, you face huge challenges. So my advice really in some for the youth is that, look, there are great opportunities. I mean, yes, I'm a youth man, but I've always been interested in cross-border business, and that is why we've been, exploiting other markets that are profitable. But you need to be armed with a lot of skills, so whatever you are doing, you can market yourself. So that's my advice.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that young people are in the meantime reacting, and actually I've seen some messages addressed to you. I would like now to give the floor to Ms. Ngone Diop for the question that emerged from the roundtables, and then I will come back to all our experts and panelists with a specific question, and will be good to see then the different inputs on it as we are conducting the study. So Ms. Ngone Diop, first of all, welcome and thank you very much for joining. This question as well comes from our regional consultation and is as follows. To what extent will the AfCFTA contribute toward creating an enabling environment for youth-led cross-border entrepreneurship innovation to flourish? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for inviting us. I would like also to thank all the actors, youth and other UN agency, African Development Bank, and so on, that are actually participating every day in helping the implementation of the FTA. I think the theme of this roundtable is extremely important and timely, because it comes at a time where we're now moving toward accelerating the implementation. So the CFTA, the way it has been conceptualized, it provides what it takes actually to ensuring that the youth can be part of the game and the youth can benefit from the CFTA. So now, to coming back to your question, how actually do we ensure that it can support the youth cross-border enterprise and businesses across the continent? I think first and foremost, let's see the content of the CFTA. And what are the key elements that actually can motivate first and the youth participation and the youth contribution? Because it's not only for the youth to benefit, but it's also important for the youth to be part and parcel of the game. When it comes to youth participation, I think for them to be benefiting from the CFTA, first they have to understand it. And I believe we all know they have not understood the CFTA. So between 55 and 60% of the youth are yet to understand the content of the CFTA and the kind of requirement and benefit. That is number one. Number two, I think, which is so important, is for them also to benefit that way. They should already have what it takes to engage into the different setting, the landscape. And to engage into the different landscape, we also have to go back to the requirement in terms of education, in terms of innovation, in terms of creativity, and also in terms of knowing the kind of rule that underpin the trade already before even the CFTA was adopted, but the kind of rule that actually have been put in place for many years to facilitate. The former President speaker mentioned the different rules that are actually adopted in West Africa, for instance, in the other regional communities. So understanding the rule is also, and be able to engage into different segments of the CFTA, the different requirements, they understand to provide and to get what it takes is not another thing. When it comes, for example, to ECA, relating to your question, one thing which we were doing is to say, first, open up the game and show the youth what are the possibilities. We all know that the 2.5 trillion has been talking about, 1.52 billion in terms of consumer have been talking about, but in reality, what does it mean? What are the kind of critical entry point for the youth to say those very magnificent opportunities? And when it comes to the figures, just very quickly, the scenario we found recently was to say, if we apply the CFTA the way it is, Here are the kind of opportunities that the, sorry? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Somebody was talking.
Yes, we can hear. No, we can hear you.
Yes, we hear.
Please continue. So let me give you one example, the kind of change and how the youth can actually save those change. The scenario we found in our study as ECA showed that in the intra-African export, for example, by men's sector, if we take the biggest sector, the more productive sector, from the more productive to the lower, we found if you compare the baseline without CFTA by 2040, between the scenario, low scenario, intermediate, and high scenario, we can actually harness from that CFTA in the energy, mine sector, industry service from 3.1 billion to 43.3 trillion. So it means the youth have the way, the opportunity there. The youth with innovation, we had, you talk about your Rust forum, but we also had forum where we engage the youth and try to understand the kind of innovation they are in, the kind of creativity and the kind of new program based on innovation and creativity business they are in. There were 3,900 youth, many of them all trying to do something. Many of them were trying to innovate. So I think if we have that and we train them, we give them the right education, the right information, we support them. My colleague talked about finance, but more than finance, there's also the hands-on education and qualification at the technical level, at the high-tech level that can actually reduce the trajectory toward engaging in the market and toward benefiting from the market. Before that kind of chain of innovation, they will take them more than 20 years, according to study, for them to access one market and get the right information and be able to engage. With the innovation that are there and with the willingness and ability of the youth in Africa to engage in and to actually get this familiarity and own the innovation, there is possibility for them to move from being not more than 82% in the informal employment and unproductive employment to be able to cross border, but from a very productive one, but also be able to engage in the national, cross-national and regional value chain, all of which will provide the kind of insight and the kind of values that is needed for the youth to actually be empowered, but be also access to a productive job. Another thing which is very important, I'm going to end up there. What we found when we did our consultation is also how the youth could benefit from them from the different angle, depend also on the kind of concrete experience that they know. Besides being educated, besides having technology, knowing the technology and the uptake into innovation and businesses, there is need for the intergenerational dialogue from the technical and the practical way that bring the youth entrepreneur or those who would like to enter into the market with the well-fledged established entrepreneur that actually have a lot of experience in positive experience and negative experience, but they will be able in a very concrete and tailor-made one, give them insight into what actually is required. And if you do what is required, what you could actually get. And I think in West Africa and across also, I'm in West Africa, but in other regions of the continent, we see those very network coming in, but not really in a very powerful way. What we have now is a network of youth entrepreneurs in working by themselves, and you also have an association of entrepreneurs across Africa, across the different regions, but bringing them together and making the platform, and I think you can play a critical role. You have been playing it, you can do it again and reinforce it, bringing them together to, in a very concrete way, translate the know into the know-how, the learn, the theoretical and so on into the know-how based on their respective experience, be it negative, because negative experience is a learning curve, but also be able to engage with them and have this kind of pilot group of testing, if you like, which can be a campus, which can be a laboratory, which can be also review over time, these partners and so on. And this brings me also, and I'm going to end that, in terms of the partnerships again, in the same vein of bringing the different actors, why we are partnering here at ECA with knowledge-based and think tank institutions, which are very critical to understanding the policy dynamic, very critical to understanding the kind of issues and policy implication inherent in shaping the CFTA and in able to promote it for the youth, for women, and so on. We also have very concrete and very high level practical partnership with African Bank, for example, with the Islamic Development Bank, for example, and no one. Why? Because concretely, if it comes, for example, to pharmaceutical, our study have shown that 90% of our pharmaceutical needs are actually imported. With COVID-19, some tests have been done in the different countries, and some countries have revealed to have potential through their use and through their innovation aspect to actually turn that into reality. It cuts across the region, it cuts across sub-region, and it cuts across the continent. So my point is, yes, you can have all the things, but it's a multi-sectorial and multi-level engagement and multi-level solution that one can bring. Those kind of solutions should be done with the youth, conceptualized with them, but also with the engagement with those who are established entrepreneur, established decision makers, and so on and so forth. Once you have that, you have in your platform a kind of series of laboratory case study experiences, so that really can help you to bring more on board, to bring more use on board, to test it more on board, and to be able to have a powerful repository of what it takes to actually achieve as youth in the CFTA, how the youth have really been successful, in which sector, in line with the scenario I have already mentioned. Over to you.
Thank you very much for your remarks and insights, Ms. Diop. And for those who joined us now, welcome to the All Africa High-Level Virtual Roundtable on AfCFTA Youth Inclusion, where we will be discussing with prominent leaders from different sectors why African youth should care about the AfCFTA and what African governments, development partners, private sector, academia, civil society, and other actors can do to enable meaningful participation and maximum benefits of AfCFTA to African youth. I want to acknowledge all honorables and excellencies in the room and warmly welcome all of you for joining the conversation. I please request participants to keep the microphones muted to allow our conversation proceeding smoothly and without interruptions. We have literally 10 minutes, and I have now one question to our experts before we wrap up and proceed with our program. We value your time, and once again, we thank you for being here and for enriching our knowledge and work on the AfCFTA. In the meantime, again, I encourage participants to interact in the chat and please keep the microphones muted. We have heard about opportunities and initiatives, and we also heard clearly that the AfCFTA is a reality, and there are many reasons to think that will not remain a mere paper. We heard valuable references to women and young women, not just as beneficiaries, but also as valuable actors to its implementation. However, some young people argued that there are still challenges in terms of awareness and mobilization, as already raised by our valuable experts at the same time. So the question is, in literally 1 minute per speaker, is, in your opinion, are African youth adequately aware, skilled, mobilized, and capacitated to play a role in the implementation of AfCFTA? If not, what are the 3 major steps, in your opinion, we need to take cross-sectorally to empower and mobilize young people in the implementation of AfCFTA? Ms. Ngone, for example, has already mentioned education and creativity, and we are very curious to hear other steps that we need to jointly take. So I will start with Ms. Emily. The floor is yours. Thank you.
What did she want?
Miss Emily?
Yes, please, if you can repeat.
Okay, great. Yes, I was saying, in your opinion, Are African youth adequately aware, skilled, mobilized, and capacitated to play a role in the implementation of AfCFTA? And if not, what are the 3 major steps we need to take cross-sectorally to empower and mobilize young people in the implementation of AfCFTA?
Okay, thank you very much. What I can say with that is that, of course, we need more webinars and awareness building activities like the one we are having today. And I'm here with a colleague of mine who's a youth who actually holds a clubhouse session every Tuesday that deals or looks at issues related to the AfCFTA so as to be able to actually build more awareness on issues related to the AfCFTA implementation and how to include the youth more. So really the step is to have more awareness building exercises. Now, the second step after that is to organize yourselves. And I'm happy that I can see that you have already started organizing yourselves, even in the different regions, and also then bringing in the continental element so as to be able then to be part of stakeholder meetings or forums where we will look at then the different issues of what are we going to include in the protocol that we shall be developing that takes care of women and youth, and of course SMEs. At the end of the day, when we speak about SMEs, most of the SMEs are led by women or young people. So that becomes very instrumental in terms of ensuring that issues related to youth are part of the ongoing negotiations and also part of implementation in the areas where we have already concluded with the protocols. And when I say that, of course, then I am reminded of startups. And one of the dockets that I'm also dealing with is intellectual property rights. And we have very many youth who come up with innovative ideas in the areas of services, in development of new products. So we would need then to ensure that those products or those ideas are then protected, the intellectual property of the youth are also protected, and they also gain financially from those innovations. So involvement of the youth in the negotiations and even in the development of that protocol becomes very important. So, and then the last element now to just think of the steps as you have asked me is then to ensure that you implement. And when I say implement, it is you take advantage of the opportunities that are in the agreement that has already been developed and actually look at different areas where you can then be able to export or even import from other African countries for trade, for enhancing your SMEs and to be able to trade across the continent. So that for me, I think is the 3 main steps that the youth need to undertake. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Emily, and I really hope our participants feel now the need to get more familiar with the agreement. And of course, I hear you clearly about webinars, informative sessions. I like so much when you solicited us to organize ourselves. And indeed, I would like to invite our participants to follow our social media pages as we will be hosting other webinars and informative sessions. I would like now to invite Ms. Iman in 1 minute to respond to the same question. And Ms. Eminent, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to answer the question. So I feel that the youth are aware in some aspects of the agreement, and in other aspects, those who are aware are not sure what to do with the agreement. And even for those who know what to do with the agreement, maybe they have challenges like, let's say, they don't have enough skills, they don't have access to finance, and there are programs out there that are created to facilitate the youth, but they're not aware of them. So in terms of awareness, I think it has to be very strategic and targeted towards facilitating the understanding of youth, of the different aspects and the different services that are being offered by different NGOs, for instance, or different development organizations in terms of capacity building or in terms of financing, so that they can effectively take advantage. When you come and talk of skills, the issue is kind of the same, because I feel like there are youth out there who have the skills to take advantage, but they don't have the information of what they can take advantage of. And then those who are aware of the opportunities lie ahead of them don't really necessarily have the skills. So like there's a serious mismatch. And I believe right now we live in a world where most of the youth are very tech savvy. They can employ themselves through technology, but again, there are also inherent challenges that exist. And there are others who are great, have great business ideas, but due to a lack of skills or not knowing where to find these people with the skills, then again becomes problematic. So I think there should be deliberate action in trying to take care of this mismatch, because to say that in Africa, we can't just generalize and say that we do not have the skills. We do have the skills. A lot of people have the skills, but they're just not matched to the right programs. And I also believe that the AfCFTA actually should care for the youth, because they can capitalize on the skills that the youth have out there, considering that they make up a majority segment of the population. There could be programs that through the startups, innovator hubs, and accelerators, you could use this youth to try and impart this knowledge to their communities. And recently, there was a World Economic Forum study that estimated that roughly 1 billion jobs are going to be disrupted in the future of work. Right now, digitization is still in its early phases in Africa, and people are seeing it as an alternative.
I'm really sorry. Please, can you all mute your microphones? Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, the world right now sees tech as an area where like it's an alternative, but we're not seeing that it's increasingly integrating into every aspect of our life. So maybe in the next 2 decades, everything is going to be online. And this is really going to cause a serious disruption in terms of skills and jobs. Even for those who are highly skilled, like let's say doctors, their profession could be at jeopardy because of things like artificial intelligence. So machine learning. And it's very important for right now for governments, even though the AfCFTA is going to create opportunities for youth and it's going to create employment. And even if there is awareness, governments still have to think of the future of work, how this is changing and the skills that will be required. And they always need to go back and think of like the curriculums we have in school right now. Are they really preparing a workforce that will be able to cope with the requirements of the workforce, or will they be left behind again? And if we don't want this to happen, governments have to make strategic investments right now and come up with great ideas of how to bridge this gap between what we're struggling with in the traditional trading environment, for instance, and seeing how we can bridge this with the tech aspect. And this needs to be done very quickly if we do not want the gap to widen. Yeah, so that's basically my 2 cents. And in addition, the private sector has a very critical role to play because they consistently have to be training their workforce. It's foreseen that, for instance, by the year 2022, at least 42% of the skills that are required to do the jobs today have to be updated. And companies have to start thinking of this right now and thinking if they don't want to increase the cost of production and we want to industrialize, we don't want to have to seek for expertise off the continent. We need to find these people right here. So it's very important that we prepare them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your valuable insight. While you were talking, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Joy for the same question. And in your opinion, the 3 major steps impact young people in the implementation of the AfCFTA. The floor is yours, Dr. Joy.
Thank you very much, Soja, for the opportunity, and it's been a pleasure to listen to all of the panelists. Great ideas, great perspectives. I'm particularly proud when I listen to people I've known for many years, in their learning journey like Amen. I'm really proud of you, Amen. What steps youth must take concretely? The core is to situate yourself in this universe called the AfCFTA. As I said at the start, there are so many angles to how this thing can be sliced, but ultimately it's about the products. It's about the products you produce, it's about securing markets, it's about delivering on those opportunities. And so I'd like to say three key things. And I say this after many years in doing trade capacity building, that knowledge is important, information is important, but we need to have the knowledge and the information contextualized in a way that you can utilize it for the opportunities in the AfCFTA. So we've spent many years teaching about rules and regulations. We must teach about market entry standards, quality standards, where you secure your financing, what are the critical business linkages that Madame Goni was talking about. So for me, I would say, if I leave a message with you, it is situate yourself in the ecosystem, make it your lived reality, and get the critical knowledge you need to do that. The second thing I'd like to then say is tackle the ecosystem questions, especially the ones you can control. No one is going to give you the ideas. No one is going to give you the drive to move into those ideas. It has to come from within you, because when it comes from within you, you can sustain. So think about how you situate yourself, control what you can in the ecosystem, and then advocate for the rest that you can't. Because it's true that when you talk about cross-border trade, you're really relying on the goodwill of governments, but you must advocate and push and ensure that the reforms are taking place. The final thing I'd like to say then is you need to understand the market. You need to think about what are the opportunities concretely. You need to take it from this big universe of ideas to who am I in this story? Where do I sit in? What products can I produce? Where do I secure the deals? Where do I secure the financing? How do I prepare myself to deliver? And then you move accurately and targetedly in that direction. It is a trade liberalizing instrument. It's a market opening instrument. Create the products, supply the market, then we will make it your lived reality. Now, that is not to belittle or to underestimate all of the other issues around the AfCFTA. But if we're talking about it as a transformative tool that is supposed to create jobs, it's supposed to add value, that's supposed to create diversification, then clearly it's about products, which can be goods, which can be services. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy, and definitely contextualize knowledge and information. And I believe, as also was said by Miss Iman, in the times we are, also simplification is extremely important. And I love something about young people. We are a creative generation, and I'm sure that we are able to contextualize, disseminate, and support knowledge and information. Same question to you, Dr. Josephine. The floor is yours. 3 main steps.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can do this in 1 minute. So what you are asking is what we think would be some of the important things to do to increase awareness. I think the previous speakers have highlighted the importance of the youth understanding what it is that we're talking about, both in terms of the content of the agreement, but also the opportunities that are embedded in this agreement and where they should actually be focusing when they think about taking advantage of these opportunities. And let me tell you that at the African Development Bank, we have already organized 2 awareness creation events. We had one on the 18th of March this year that was looking at the opportunities for African fashion entrepreneurs in the context of the Continental Free Trade Area. I think a lot of young people participated in that event. And on the 25th of March, we had another event which was engaging with the private sector on the issues around the implementation of the agreement. And this is just the beginning for us, just to confirm to you that the bank does agree we need to enhance the awareness amongst the youth, and indeed those that are going to partner with the youth to help them take advantage of the agreement. But more specifically on the 3 things that you would want me to highlight, I think I just want to underscore what others have said. Events such as this webinars such as those the bank has organized. We need to keep doing more and more of them. And I would say we need to do them now while the agreement is kicking off, because there's a tendency for, after some kind of fatigue. If you try to do this awareness creation 3 years from now and tell people it's an agreement that was signed in 2018, people kind of start thinking that's an old agreement, we need to move on. So I think there's an urgency also in terms of creating this awareness and facilitating the kind of seminars, webinars, workshops where the youth would come together and learn more about the agreement. But linked to that, it's really the question of what we'll be discussing. It's not about the content. I just want to say it's not necessarily the content of the agreement. It's teasing out the opportunities that are embedded in this agreement and identifying where are the comparative advantages for the youth. It's not every opportunity in the agreement that is going to be suitable for the youth, definitely not right now, given the kind of challenges we just talked about. But we need to really sit down, have a focused conversation, ask ourselves, where are the best chances for the youth to succeed? What are the critical success factors that are required? And how can we bring together the different partners to help us realize some demonstration effect that can take us to the next level? So really just thinking very clearly, reflecting, and we should support some quick generation of some knowledge products, some very quick notes that can help the youth do these brainstorming sessions, right? What are the value chains that are opening up? Where do the youth have comparative advantages in these value chains? Where are the digital skills that can help us really take advantage and be competitive in certain value chains? That is going to require a bit of knowledge. And I do think, as a second point from me, is we need to think that you need to think about this, and we need to support the generation of this knowledge. And finally, as a third point, I would just say we should all continue leveraging any high-level event that any of us organize to provide the youth with a platform to showcase what they can do, to brainstorm, as I said, to exchange ideas with partners and other private sector colleagues who are not necessarily the youth, but have good ideas that can be shared with the youth. I think those opportunities would be very helpful because in most of them, as we know right now, there's a lot of discussion that's ongoing about the Continental Free Trade Area, and we can take advantage of those. So that was in 1 minute, but over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Josephine, for your valuable answer. And I would like to apologize to our remarkable experts about the time limit, but I want to make sure that we don't take a lot of your time, and at the same time, we can proceed smoothly with the other panels. So the same question goes to you, Mr. Mustafa, as we're really keen to hear from you and your opinion on whether African youth are adequately aware, skilled, mobilized, and capacitated to play a role in the implementation of AfCFTA. And if not, what are the 3 major steps we need to take cross-sectorally to empower and mobilize young people in the implementation of AfCFTA? 1 minute, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Wow, what 1 minute is short, but I'll be very brief. And my response really will be addressed to the youth entrepreneurs, because as I'm an entrepreneur, to be successful as an entrepreneur, there's something that you must do as an entrepreneur, and that is risk-taking. My advice to the youth that they must take risk. The opportunity has been created. We must move away, as I said earlier, from, I have heard a lot of time people talking about webinars, awareness. I would like to probably do a survey of the youth who are now involved in this, as opposed to those who are out there in the field, who are doing business, who are actually taking these opportunities. So my advice is that let's move away from too many webinars, too many conferences, but take the risk. I mean, there's an opportunity. It's about cross-border trade. And opportunities have been created, between countries, larger markets. So please, the young people should take the opportunity by taking a risk. Risk-taking is one of the fundamental issues that you must take if you are to succeed. Get out from your comfort zones, and take risk. Secondly, I would advise that the youth of today, the African youth, should also, network amongst themselves. If you want to scale up, you must learn from each other. So I will really stop on those 2 points since it's only a minute. One is risk-taking, two is develop big networks amongst yourselves. Once you have a solid network, then you can scale up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, also for the bold message. Let's take risks. And indeed, I think that this platform will motivate young entrepreneurs to be inspired by your journey. So last but not least, Ms. Ngone, in literally 30 seconds, what are the 3 major steps? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Monsieur Mustafa has actually alluded to one of the things I wanted to say, but what I would like to say is the following. Number one is we have to remember that the CFTA is not a panacea. But however, our research evidences have shown that it is a critical and unprecedented enabler. Enabler in terms of production, in terms of access to market, and in terms, most importantly, to transforming our product. We would like to move away from the paradox of the plenty. That's one statement I wanted to make. What does it mean? 3 things. The 3 things are articulated around the very big thing, which is the power of understanding everything, but we have to move away from understanding it. That's what we were talking about. We need to understand, we need to inform them, to actions. Actions in terms of really acquiring the culture of creativity, the culture of innovation, the culture of producing. If we are in a small startup, for example, or we didn't even have any eye to do it, and we know there is something called CFTA, enabler for me as a young woman or young man to engage in the given sector and learn how to transform the specific resources into something. I think that's very critically important. Let's move away from seeing the youth who are flying from country to country, buying things in a non-developed country to sell. When we have the resources to transform the very best and actually produce the very product in a very cost-effective way, number one. It cut across all our sector, agriculture, clothes, etc. Number 2, I think perseverance is very important. There's nothing you can achieve without being committed to the cause and being perseverant. Look, I always say, let's not try to dream about success. We have to learn to work for success. And if you work hard, if you believe in yourself, self-confident, if you really acquire gradually the innovation and so on and so forth, what it takes for you to engage and produce and transform one single resources, you can be part and parcel of the game changer, and you can benefit from the CFTA. So action again. Action again in terms of saying, learn, apply, and change. Learn, apply, and change with others, because there are many players in the CFTA landscape. And those players come from decision makers, they come from the financial people, etc. But they come also from those entrepreneurs, business people, women and men, who have
need to interrupt, apologies, 20 seconds.
Those people, we should link them. And so my last point in learning, applying, and changing is to bring the linkages and have built the kind of community of practice, call it whatever you want, but which is substantive, concrete, with concrete element that can say, you have to take your future into your hand. And in so doing, this is the sector where the situation is. You can do A, B, C to contribute to transforming. And in so doing, you're contributing to transforming the structural, to the structural.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I really need to cut because we need to proceed. Thank you very much to our valuable speakers and experts for joining our panel. This is very much appreciated, and I'm confident with the AfCFTA and Secretary Ahmed, Minister Women, Children and Youth of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia has joined us. Honorable, welcome, and I hope you have enjoyed the conversation and the inputs from our experts. The floor is yours during your exposition, Honorable. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Soda. Thank you.
Can someone from the team give me a heads up whether it's my internet?
Sorry,
yes, we are on.
That has an issue.
Okay, so Honorable, the Minister has an issue with the internet. Can you please frankly notify me when Honorable is online?
Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, please keep the microphones muted. You will have an opportunity to provide remarks or ask questions. But for now, please, everyone, microphones muted. Thank you.
So far, she's rejoining. We could proceed as we await her to rejoin.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can proceed now with our program, and we will definitely give the opportunity to Honorable to provide the ministerial address. I would like to invite Pete Star for the artistic performance before transitioning to the second panel. Pete Star?
Hey, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Before I proceed?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. I am Pete, the poet from Nairobi. I have a spoken word poem I want to share with you. This piece is called Africa, My Business. I hope all of you will enjoy. When I say I'm African, I mean I come from a rich continent called Africa, rich in terms of people, culture, and also resources. So I am waiting for your apologies, Mr. Coming to America. The Africa you guys depict is found in place movies. When I say I come from Africa, I don't mean a country like many outside this beautiful home will make you think. When you let anyone tell your story, they will always tell it according to their agenda. When I say I'm a full place that God took his time to create, you will see a plant called cactus, a plant among many others that survive tough and harsh weather conditions. Yes, in the desert it survives. You speak of Africa like it's one big desert and wonder why pandemic after pandemic we survive, we rise, we conquer like we do in those marathons. No human is limited. Yes, Mr. Eliud Kipchoge, I believe you. No human is limited. We are not sprinters, but we are marathon runners. We run in life. We run in real life. We in this game of liberating Africa, and better believe it's a marathon, but running marathons is what we do. Haven't you seen? We are not sprinters. Yes, we are marathon runners. When I say I'm African, I don't mean I am escorted by lions when I go shopping. Leopards are not the type of cats at home that you keep as pets. No, those cats are different, but I am different too. I am African. But we are a beautiful people. with hearts that touch humanity. So when I say I'm African, I mean that even as I run a marathon, I will not hold back myself from giving water to a fellow athlete who is panting from the tough and rough race. When I say live, when I say that I want to live and die in Africa, like Tauti Soul said, from my head to my soul, I mean, it does not mean I do not want to travel and change the world. It only means that I have accepted Africa as my home and I want to see it grow. I want to see it sow. I want to see it prosper. I want to see it rise. Be it from the ashes, we shall rise. We always rise with energy. With energy and much like the youth you find only in Africa. Not the energy that you have been told that we wrestled bears and lions with. No, that was King David, ladies and gentlemen. And I am way down from that ideology. African youth, I believe, are brilliant, with intelligent minds, with potential overflowing like sweet, flowing from honeycombs. So I am tired of being made to feel like I am less than just as I'm Africa. That saying I'm African always means this last continent, the place where they think poverty calls home, when in the real sense, other places suffer too, still challenges as we do. Haven't you read or heard that the last will not always be the first? The last will be the first, and the first will be the last. Kutangulia si kufika, the Swahili people say. Just because you had a head start doesn't always mean you finish first. Africa, I would like to ask as a question, why do we always wash our dirty linen in public? Around the same time, my country, Kenya, had a terrorism attack. Other places in US, specifically Chicago, more people were dying than they were dying here. But you will never hear of it because they choose to let you see what they want you to see. Africa, maybe it's time that we rebrand.
Please, your connectivity is very poor, sir.
Maybe Africa. Can you hear me?
Sir, maybe you can close the video also. Please notice that Honorable the Minister has rejoined again, and I would like to give her the floor for the ministerial address. So apologies, but I would like, please, once again, everyone to keep the microphone mute. Secretariat and the team that is coordinating. We also see your hands up. Please rest assured that you will have a session for your inputs and questions. I would like to check whether Honorable the Minister has rejoined.
Yes, Sadaf, I'm here.
Yes.
Sotfa, we seem to have lost you.
Sotfa, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just apologies, Honorable. Franklin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes, the floor is yours, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin my remarks by expressing what a great pleasure and honor it is to take part in this Continental high-level virtual roundtable on the African Continental Free Trade Area in Youth. I want to appreciate the organizers for putting the spotlight on such an important agenda for African youth and for bringing together a dynamic panel of policymakers, business leaders, development partners, and of course, the youth. Africa's the youngest continent in the world, with almost 60% of the population under the age of 25. In many African countries, including my country, Ethiopia, where almost 40% of the population is under 15 and almost 20% is between the age of 15 and 24. The demographic compels countries to put youth at the center of the policy agenda. This youth bulge can give the continent a huge economic and social advantages if countries are wise enough to tap into the potential. On the other hand, it can also be a source of strain on the economic as well as risks to peace and security. If countries are unable to address the needs of the youth, especially lack of education, unemployment, and lack of income generating activities. Youth unemployment remains a critical impediment for almost all African countries. Encouraging the youth to engage in trade and entrepreneurship can be one of the ways of addressing this problem. In addition to domestic trade and investment, cross-border and regional trade opportunities have huge potential in engaging the youth. This is where the African Continental Free Trade comes in. With the acceptance of 54 out of 55 African countries, the free trade area, which was officially commenced in January of this year, will pave the way for the economic integration of the continent. The benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Area, including boosting inter-African trade, facilitating trade by removing tariffs and non-tariff barriers, and strengthening the continent's common position in the global marketplace. In addition, it is expected to create new and better employment opportunities in an integrated labor market. The proper implementation of the free trade area will contribute towards the development of the continent and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Africa's Agenda 2065. Recognizing these benefits, Ethiopia is one of the countries which has taken the early lead in ratifying the agreements. Ladies and gentlemen, for the Continental Free Trade Area to have the desired impact, especially to transform the lives of the youth, it is important to put in place national policies and programs that support its inclusive and participatory implementations. First among us, this is addressing the impediments that the youth face in engaging in cross-border trade, such as lack of access to assets and finance, trade-related information, business and entrepreneur skills, and reforming administrative and regulatory frameworks. Second, we need to ensure that the youth are ready to make use of technological advancements in trade and take advantage of the digital economy. In addition to education and skill development, this requires investing in access to the internet and infrastructures. Third, we have to be cognizant of the gender inequality in unemployment and work to address them so that the young women equally benefit from the platform. Last but not least, I believe the youth should be aware of the free trade area, its advantages, and practical ways on how they can benefit. Without a doubt, the active engagement of the youth is the most essential factor to contribute towards the effective implementation of the free trade area. Contributing their knowledge, skills, and labor to cross-border trade is one dimension, but holding governments accountable to their commitment is also key. This requires an active platform for youth where they can voice their perspective. For this reason, the Ethiopian Ministry of Women, Children and Youth, which I lead, is in the process of establishing a National Youth Council, which will bring both male and women and female youth from across the country to deliberate on issues that are critical to them, contribute their perspective in the policy-making process, and make their voices heard. We hope that the Youth Council will be an important platform to support the government in a youth-led implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area in Ethiopia, as well as get the information across for a large group of youth. We're also in the process of establishing youth-designated hubs across the country, which will serve as hubs for the youth to access skills, information, and opportunities. The youth hubs are another platform to raise awareness of African youth on the free trade area, as well as capacitate them with the skills and information. Another initiative which I hope will aid in the implementation of the free trade area, especially for young women, is the COMESA 50 Million African Women Speak, which was launched in Ethiopia in March 2021. The project, which has set up Continental digital platform for market information and networking opportunities, can facilitate the functioning of free trade areas and making it inclusive. In addition to the government's role in guaranteeing youth engagement in the implementation of free trade area, private sector and development partners can also be critical partners, both in spreading the information and creating opportunities. However, it is the youth who are the primary stakeholders. They need to take their fate in their own hands and take ownership and accelerate the implementation of African continental free trade. This could mean that youth coffee farmers in Jimma from Ethiopia or in Nairobi from Kenya could welcome young Moroccans in Tangier or Algerian investors in Oran for a joint venture in agricultural processing. It could also mean young Egyptian cotton manufacturers in Alexandria can partner with young cotton farmers in Mapeti in Mali. Also, young Botswanian diamond producers in Sarawi can team up with young jewelers in Senegal, Dakar, and so on. Thus, unleashing the immense potential of the continent through free movement of people and goods. In closing, I want to call upon African governments to continue their commitment to opening up their borders, but also their hearts for an integrated Africa where the youth, both male and female, have the opportunity to contribute to the continent's development. God bless our continent and God bless our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable, for the ministerial address, and we appreciate joining us and enriching the conversation. To our participants, we clearly hear you and we apologize for stopping and interrupting the artistic performance, but we are running out of time and I hope you are enjoying this conversation. I would like now to invite my colleague, Rotinho Lawale, co-founder and executive director of Youth Hub Africa, for the moderation of the second high-level panel on regional economic communities and governments. Rotinho, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Sadfa, and thank you very much. I stand on all existing protocol. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, for wherever you join us today on this high-level discussion on the Africa Free Trade Agreement. I'll be moderating the second panel, and I'd like to invite to join me on this panel, Prudence Sebazi, the Chief Technical Advisor of the AfCFTA and head of the AfCFTA unit at the African Union Commission. Prudence, if you are there, please kindly signify. Prudence, if you are there, kindly signify. Let me go over and confirm also if we have Sandra Chihaka. Sandra Chihaka is a young expert.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
And works for Zimbabwe Revenue Authority.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Did I get a confirmation from Prudence?
And in addition,
okay, thank you, Sandra. And last but not the least, I'd like to also invite Mohamed Lamin Sadikan, the coordinator of the African Rising for Justice, Peace, and Dignity. Lamin, are you in the room?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon to you all.
Thank you very much, Lamin and Sandra, for joining us. If we have Prudence, I hope you would join us before the end of this conversation. I don't know if both of you were in the room earlier when we had the first beautiful panel, and we had a lot of insight and conversations on the Africa Free Trade agreement, my first question to both of you would be, do we think the African youth are actually prepared, adequately aware, they're mobilized and have the necessary capacity to engage in this Africa Free Trade Agreement, which many people have said is a game changer in encouraging intra-Africa trade on the continent? Let me start with Sandra.
Personally, I think there's quite a lot that we can do for the African youth in order to raise awareness. I think most of the awareness has been in private sector involvement and empowerment, but I think there's not much that has been done on the customs processes and procedure side, because like trade does not take place in a vacuum. Customs is a very important part of the trade ecosystem. From experience, most of the trainings are being done to conscientize the youth on export markets and maybe trade finance, which is involved. But there's not much which is being talked about in terms of how those goods are going to move from one country to another. Because it's one thing producing the goods, it's one thing having the resources, one thing having the finance, but it's another thing getting those goods to the other country. And customs in this case plays a very important role. So as far as customs procedures and processes are concerned, I doubt very much if there's been much training as far as African young people are concerned. That's my personal view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And I hope that Prudence, if you're there, maybe you could actually also respond to this issue around customs. I know a lot of people have also highlighted the issues with customs regulations in moving goods and services across the continent. For instance, in the ECOWAS region, where there's a free movement of goods and services, this will also be a challenge that a number of people have highlighted. Would you like to respond to that and also talk about if young people on the continent are adequately mobilized, prepared to take advantage of the Africa Free Trade Agreement? Welcome, Prudence.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator. Apologies, I've been attending many meetings in a parallel. So I was expecting the first session to take some time, and I had to go back to the other meeting. So I'm happy to be here. I don't know whether the question is addressed to me or whether the previous speaker is still on the floor.
The question is addressed to you. And I also wanted you to respond to what the previous speaker said about the issue with customs in implementing the Africa Free Trade Agreement, how more training needs to be directed towards ensuring the custom agreement works well when people try to move goods and services between countries on the continent.
All right. Let me start by emphasizing that the AfCFTA liberalization is a process. It's not something that happens in one day. It's a process. Of course, it will take quite some time depending on the commitments that have been made by countries. Some countries have committed to liberalize their trade over a period of 5 years. And these are developing countries. These are relatively advanced countries on the continent, whereas least developed countries have committed to liberalize the AfCFTA market over a period of 10 years. And this will affect 90% of the total tariff lines, meaning that it's 90% of the tradable goods on the continent will be liberalized over a period of 5 to 10 years, depending on the country categories. That's number one. So number two, the tariff liberalization will be accompanied by a number of measures. Measures for trade facilitation. This is very important because the AfCFTA has got a trade facilitation legal instrument, which is an annex to the protocol on trading goods. We have got a legal instrument on customs procedures and customs administration, which also aims at facilitating transactions at customs level when goods and services are entering the customs territory of each and every country. So I think that with those instruments in place, what needs to be done is to look at the efficiency of each and every customs authority of each country, and then also look at the time frame that has been committed by each and every country, whether the commitment has to be implemented in 1 year or whether the commitment has to be implemented over a long period of time. It will be very important to ensure that there is full compliance in all the AfCFTA state parties. I think that one is my answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Prudence. I'd like to follow up with a second question. So assume that I know nothing about the Africa Free Trade Agreement. I don't know anything about this tariff liberalization, trade facilitation, the LDCs and the developing countries, the 5-year and 10-year agreement and all of that. Just assume I'm the guy on the street who wants to import, export cocoa from Ghana and send to Kenya. How soon can I take advantage of the Africa Trade Agreement and do this? And how can I make this happen?
All right, you have to understand the AfCFTA comes with a number of opportunities in different ways. It's not only looking at elimination of tariffs. It's not only looking at customs efficiency, because this is about liberalization of trade in goods. And sometimes people confuse AfCFTA with normal free trade area where you have a liberalization of trade in goods alone. So the AfCFTA is a particular enterprise for the continent which touches on a big number of policies. We are not talking about trade liberalization of trading goods, of goods alone. We are talking about other policies that have been put in place. Let me just give you one example of the AfCFTA protocol on investment, which is now under negotiations, which is supposed to be concluded anytime soon. Once the investment protocol is in place, I'm quite sure that every entrepreneur on the continent or from outside the continent who wants to invest in Africa will see a difference from now on compared to how the business environment has been in Africa before. And this is thanks to the AfCFTA. Number two, we have other policies that are supporting trade in general. Like we have policies that will address national regulatory issues on trade services. There are many services that are directly related to trade in goods, and the way they will be regulated within the AfCFTA, they will be harmonized, so that when you have invested in one country, it will be very much easier for you to extend your business in 2 or 3 more African countries, members of the AfCFTA, based on the same standards that are applying within the AfCFTA regulatory framework. And thirdly, which is now very important to understand, is that African countries are coming together to address all challenges related to business, related to doing business, whether they are infrastructural related, technological related, or even issues related to regulatory framework, because we are looking at having one trade policy for the continent. So I think with that undertaking that touches on all issues affecting business, any person who wants to do business on the continent will see directly or indirectly the benefits that will come out of the AfCFTA. And coming in particular to the question you have asked, the AfCFTA rules of origin are very specific. There will be those entrepreneurs who want to import or export products from one country to the other, and the rules of origin are going to apply. So for each and every specific product, there are attached or corresponding rules of origin within the AfCFTA. If you are trading in coffee, then there are rules of origin for coffee. You will have to understand what are the rules for coffee to move from one country to the other. Secondly, the rules of origin of the AfCFTA are going to protect locally produced products. If you are setting up a factory to produce on the continent, then the AfCFTA rules of origin are going to protect you from incoming product, from incoming similar products that would be imported from outside the continent. So you can understand that the rules of origin will play double role, protecting industries that are producing something on the continent, but they are also playing a role of facilitating the movement of those products across the continent. I think it's clear now. Or am I still?
Yeah, thank you very much for this.
Juggle?
I'll come back to you once more to share, for you to share more thoughts about it. Let me draw Lamin into this conversation. Lamin, the previous speakers, especially from the previous panel, have marketed the Africa Free Trade Agreement as more or less a silver bullet that is going to solve a lot of challenges around trade and youth unemployment on the continent. Do you think this is possible? And what are your own views around how we can get young people on the continent to tap into the possibilities within this important continental framework?
Thank you so much, Ola. And then thank you, Yulit, and all the organizers for this very important high-level discussion. I think I want to commend the AU leadership and all the people who have really put a lot of energy into coming up with a very fantastic agreement that is bringing a lot of light and hope to many of us and Africans, especially the youth generation. I think the answer is we are in dilemma in terms of whether definitely this will be the solution to all the problems that we face. But the agreement in itself is a great step in the right direction that brings a lot of hope to all of us as young people and as people in Africa. Africa actually is highly blessed. Unfortunately, we are not able to tap the blessings that have been accorded to us. But the agreement is actually bringing some hope. I think the major challenges are, at the national level, implementation. We have a lot of fine laws in Africa, very beautiful laws in Africa, but at the national level, the governments are not taking much responsibility to make people aware in itself. So a lot of ignorance around the law. I can see from the survey that Yuli did, it's only 31% of the youths are aware of this. So that called for a rigorous advocacy, a rigorous campaign, a rigorous information dissemination about the law so that people can know and tap into the opportunities of what the laws comes with. Again, governments are not also, doing a lot in terms of the implementation of some of these laws, and then especially this law. At the grassroots level, at the border points level, people goes through a lot of challenges in terms of crossing goods. I know Prudence talked about the time frames, which is great, but some of the governments will not respect this, and then it's taking time for it to happen. Like I'm in West Africa. I live in West Africa. ECOWAS have passed a lot of laws of free movement of goods and people. But when you test it and you travel around West Africa, you struggle with a lot of challenges. Myself, I did personal trips along the way to see how things are. But the harassment and the corruption along the borders is cannot be measured. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Digitalizing the systems as well at the border levels, at government level, in terms of payment of tariffs and all of that, payments of the different dues that need to be paid, also need to be really advanced faster, so that we can minimize the issue of corruption. Again, there is one challenge that needs to be pointed out. We cannot really advance effective implementation of the AfCFTA area agreement without, really also emphasizing and then calling on governments to look into the need of, free movement of people. The youth generation cannot do greater business without the free movement of people. So as it calls for an opportunity for a rigorous advocacy to have other things to be tackled as well, which are critical to the lives of all of us. I'll stop here and then come back.
Thank you very much, Lamin. I think you've spoken and touched on quite a number of few and interesting points. You mentioned the issue of borders, where it looks to see if, despite the protocols that have been adopted by regional government, a different set of rules and laws are applicable at the borders, where those who man the borders sometimes want to line their pockets and ensure there are lots of difficulties, and sometimes rules that do not even exist anywhere. You are asked to live up to these rules in order to move goods and services across the border. I've also seen that happen along the ECOWAS roads, and so I'm not surprised by the contributions you've made as regards this. My next question would be to Sandra and generally to everyone on the panel, is that as the Africa Free Trade Agreement begins to open up space for economic empowerment and participation, how do we ensure that we leave no one behind, especially young women who have businesses and who also want to tap into these opportunities? I'll start with Sandra. Sandra, I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Excellent.
In order for everyone to move along, especially the young Africans and women, there is need to ensure that the young Africans have access to trade finance. And in many cases, trade finance is related to someone having collateral. And if we can have a finance which is not collateral linked, because like youth are people defined as those between 18 and 35, and in most cases at that age, it's few people will be having property to be used as collateral by the financing institutions. So if such conditions can be relaxed, it means that the youth will be able to take part in regional trade. And also for the women, in most cases, cross-border women traders face the issue of harassment, and maybe mostly it's because of lack of customs awareness. They are not so sure of the rules which are supposed to be followed at the borders. And by so doing, customs officials usually take advantage of that. So if they can be training, especially for those marginalized groups, the women and the African young people, that would be great. And also if regional value chains could be, if they could take on board the young people and the women, so that they can, maybe they can be relaxed a bit, so that the women and the youth can also take part in the regional value chains using less strict entry criteria that will ensure that everyone is on board. But if we look at the continent now, most of the people who are engaged in this in regional trade, if you look at the companies, they are headed by the elder population, and those are the people who have already amassed resources, along the way. And even if you look at the average ages of our leaders, they are mostly above 35, which is defined as the youth. So if the conditions, if the criteria can be reduced, if they can be less strict for women and the youth, who are mostly, in most cases, the ones who are engaged in cross-border trade, and who in most cases form the SMEs, which are a large chunk of the of African trade. If those conditions are met, I think most African youth and women will be able to participate and won't be left behind. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Sandra. I come over to you once again, Prudence. In your earlier submission, you mentioned as to the issues of rules of origin and different rules of origin that would be on different products as it is. Can you provide more insight into that, specifically if there are any rules of origin within the Africa Free Trade Agreement that has been debated and agreed upon, and provide more insight into how this would apply as goods and services move from one point to the other? And I think the other two speakers have also mentioned very key points, one around the issues of challenges as to borders, where even when you have laws in place, agents at the borders do not tend to obey these laws, as with the ECOWAS protocol on movement of goods and services, free movement of goods and services that is not currently being followed upon within that region. Over to you, Prudence.
Yes, let me start by emphasizing that rules of origin, when we say that rules of origin are product specific, it takes a lot of work to understand what rules of origin are for the AfCFTA. We have more than 5,000, close to 5,400 products that are internationally recognized to be traded. So if you have more than 5,000 products to be traded, and maybe out of those 4,000 are traded on the continent, you need to have the same number of rules of origin, because each product should have its corresponding rules of origin. And it is only a company or a person who wants to trade in a particular product to make sure that they understand the corresponding rules of origin. Let me just give you one example. If you are involved in automobile sector, the automobile sector is a sector, but the entire value chain of automobile industry has got different products that can be produced within the same industry. The spare parts, each spare part of a car will have its own corresponding rules of origin. So you have to understand what product are you putting to the market, then what are the corresponding rules for that specific product. So I do not want everyone to memorize the 5,000 rules of origin within the AfCFTA. I want everyone to specialize and understand what is a product of my interest. And then once you know the product of your interest, you can dig deeper and see what is the corresponding rules of origin to that product. The second point I want to make is that the AfCFTA can be looked at from two perspectives. The AfCFTA can be looked at from the perspective of trade, where you want to move a product or a services from one place to the other. You want to take your product to the AfCFTA market. You want to sell your service to the AfCFTA market. But you can also look at it from entrepreneurship aspect. Then if you are entrepreneur, it means you want to invest, you want to make money. If you want to invest, then that's when you look at the regulatory aspect of it. You see what are the rules how do they affect my business? How do they facilitate my business? And coming back to your question on how we can bring everyone on board, this is a very important question because people will definitely benefit from the AfCFTA in general. Researchers have already shown that AfCFTA will contribute to poverty reduction, will contribute to welfare of the consumers, will boost investment, will address a number of challenges that affect each and everyone doing business on the continent. But what we have to look at is what sectors are affecting what categories of people in particular. You go to youth. Africa, the majority of Africans are in the youth bracket. Then you have to look at those sectors where youth is mostly employed, and then you boost those sectors. And if you do so, you are affecting youth that will get, let's say, job in those sectors, but you're also encouraging youth that are doing business in the same sectors to boost the economy. Look at the women. You look at sectors that employ the majority of women, then you boost those sectors. And this is very important from the perspective of a country, because each country in Africa will come up with its own strategy to implement the AfCFTA. And that strategy for implementing the AfCFTA is the one that is going to unlock all the potentials that a country has to ensure that their stakeholders benefit more from the AfCFTA. So the AfCFTA can be seen as a big endeavor, but it has to be seen as a collective effort, because if you don't dig deeper and see what is important for you, then you will not just expect that the benefits will come to you. No, people have to be active, understand this is an opportunity available to everyone, but we have to do what it takes to reap those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prudence. And as I begin to round up, because I know that time is not on our side and we have one more panel before we wrap up today's conversation. My final question to all the panelists would be, let's look at the next 5 years. If the AfCFTA is successful, what does that success looks like for you? I'll start with Labine. In the next 5 years, if the AfCFTA begins to achieve some success, what does that success look like to you, Labine?
Yeah, thank you for that brilliant question. I think that's a very good question. That success, to me, is dignified Africans. That means a dignity for all Africans, where Africans live with a very dignified life without going through, all the hurdles that will take the dignity of Africans from them. As Sandra said, at the border points, sometimes women are harassed. They go through a lot of, gender-based violence issues to really just pass their goods to another country. Again, the whole perspective of the full implementation of it is going to bring a boost economy for Africa, where Africa will be able to inject and be able to take in charge of their own development agenda by using their own resources, using their own tax money. As you might know, Africa is losing a lot of billions of dollars every year because of the whole aspect of how trade is controlled and managed, the tax evasions and all of that in Africa. So for me, I see this agreement to really reduce how much Africa is losing, because we are going to be able to trade within ourselves as a continent. Again, it's also going to make Africans to have self-esteem and self-belief that yes, it's possible. There are many laws that have come to Africa we are not able to see the fruit of those beautiful laws. So this is actually, hopefully, we're going to bring hope when it's fully implemented, because economy actually controls, a human being. If you are not really financially strong, you don't have a dignity, you don't have a voice, you don't control yourself. Why the West and the outside world is able to really control Africa and make Africa to do whatever they want, African countries to do whatever they want, is because they control the economy. If we are able to control our business and our economy, we'll be able to really take charge of our own natural resources that the world is depending on to survive. So Africa's trade within Africa is actually going to put Africa up there and be able to, lead the world in the way the world delivers development to its people. So I see a lot of hope if our leaders are able to really open up and then allow citizens to really see this as their own, and then work together with citizens to implement this. With any law that doesn't have ownership from the citizens of Africa, that law will not really make it. So I hope that the leadership will be seriously engaged by all of us, hold them accountable to their promises, and then ensure that we learn the different basics, as Prudence was putting, in terms of what benefits us in the law, and then use that to the fullest of our advantage.
Thank you very much, Lamin. Over to you, Sandra. Same question. How do you see the AfCFTA if it works well in the next 5 years?
Thank you so much. In the next 5 years, if AfCFTA is to be successful, I see a less chance of political unrest, because in most cases, political unrest is caused by idleness. So if the African young people are involved in production, they're involved in this regional trade, I see more harmony, less chance of ethnic fights, and also I see more intra-Africa trade from the current low levels compared to the other continents. So if AfCFTA is implemented in full, and if there's political will, and if there's African youth ownership, I see more intra-Africa trade. And also, I see more efficient customs operations. I see more efficient infrastructure. I see more a more powerful continent if it can be able to speak with one voice. If all countries are united, if there is more trade taking place within the continent, it means we can be more powerful than the other continents. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And I would end with Prudence. Prudence, over to you, the same question.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, that's a very good and interesting question. What can measure the success of the AfCFTA? Maybe we may not tie it to the next 5 years, but rather give it, let's say, 10 years and beyond, because it takes.
Are you saying we won't have success in 5 years, Prudence?
You said 5 years, but I mean 5 years is short. It's very short. Some countries.
I'm putting it back to you. Are you saying we won't have success in 5 years?
We can see it, but a number of indicators that will measure the success can only be achieved in a bit longer period of time. Let me just highlight 4 of them. Then you will tell me how you can see them in the next 5 years. The first indicator that will measure the success of the AfCFTA is reduction in poverty. So we can look at the status of poverty level in Africa today, and then progressively see if there is a reduction of poverty. And then we understand that the AfCFTA is doing a good job. Secondly, we have to ensure that the level of informalities on the continent is reduced. In some countries today, the informal cross-border trade contributes to more than 90% of total trade. So the reason why there is informal trade is because either traders do not trust the laws in place, and the AfCFTA is going to facilitate trade to the extent that there will be no need for informal trade. So everyone will be trading formally within the AfCFTA. So I will see the level of informal trade going down, let's say in the next 5 years and beyond. Thirdly, we have to see the level of intra-African trade increasing tremendously. Today, intra-African trade is at a minimum of 18%. So where does the 82% go? It's between Africa and the rest of the world. So I would be happy to see more intra-African trade increasing over the next few years. And fourth, of course, we have to look at the level of income of people. How does the African continent GDP increase as a result of the AfCFTA? Today, the combined GDP of the continent is around 3.4 trillion US dollar. But this is the size of some single countries in the world. The US GDP is more than 5 times the combined GDP of Africa. So it's ridiculous. I would see the African GDP increasing to a certain level, at least to compete with developed countries. So those are the 4, there can be more, but those are the 4 indicators that can show me that the AfCFTA is making success. Reduce the level of informal trade, intra-African trade volume increasing, the level of African GDP increasing, and poverty reduced on the continent. Those are just a few indicators that I can use to measure the success of the AfCFTA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prudence. Thank you very much, Sandra, and thank you very much, Lamin, for this very beautiful panel. Thank you for your insights and for your contribution. We see all the comments and the reactions and those who have raised their hands to ask a question or two. I know all questions and comments will be considered at the end of the third panel session. Let me also say that Pitsta, who made a very beautiful spoken word, who unfortunately was interrupted. We hear you, my brother, we hear the very nice contribution you've made, talking about the narratives about Africa from outside of Africa. I recall I was in a class somewhere outside of the continent once, and a colleague came to me, "Hey, I hear you're from Nigeria." I say, yeah. And he says, "Oh, I have this friend from Zimbabwe. You must know her." I say, yeah. She lives just next door on the next street. As if Nigeria and Zimbabwe, only one street separates us. And I mean, so we need to continue to curb these kinds of narratives about the continent that people do not know. And in this day and time, I'm happy that initiatives like the Africa Free Trade Agreement is an initiative of Africans helping Africa. And we've also seen this with the Africa Center for Disease Control, also leading the charge in helping to deal with the coronavirus that we have found ourselves in. It's a global challenge. Thank you very much. And I'd like to hand over to my colleague who will be leading the next panel, Stella Agara. Stella, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rotimi, for that. Thank you very much for hosting a very interesting session. We have really enjoyed listening to the ideas that have been presented, and we are definitely looking out for some of those indicators that Prudence has shared with us as far as the success of CFTA is concerned. With that, we are going to be moving to the next segment. I just want to take this conversation to the next level. We are calling it consultation with young people, and therefore we want to hear the voices of young people in this conversation. As we proceed, I don't know if you have noted that there's a poll that has been launched and is running on your screen right now. For those of you who are using computers, I'm sure it just launched in front of your computer. And those of you who are using cell phones, on your iPhone at the top, you will see a statement saying poll underway or poll ongoing, something like that. And I think for Android, it's a similar, process. So basically, just fill up the poll and as we proceed with the conversation. We have one segment of the conversation left. I'm requesting for your patience so that you can just wrap up this conversation and tie in some of the realistic areas that young people can actually be able to take advantage of. To help me with this conversation, I have a powerful panel of young entrepreneurs who are going to be joining the conversation and are going to be helping me answer your questions while we also expound on what the low-lying fruits are. My first panelist is Edith Wangari Njagi. Edith Wangari Njagi is a social and social entrepreneur, and she also terms herself as a serial entrepreneur. We're going to unpack that. She's the CEO of Ariel for Africa. Edith, welcome. I also have Tamara Mototekama Busamba from Gabon. Tamara is an economist from Gabon, and she's also a practitioner in farm produce. She has quite some experience working in agriculture, and ensuring more participation of young people in agriculture. She has developed the Wagui app, which is an app that is linking farmers to markets. And she's quite established as far as her practice is concerned, and has been recognized by the Tony Elimelu Foundation as an entrepreneur, the Moremi Initiative, the Mandela Washington, she's a Mandela Washington Fellow, and is also recognized by the Africa Code Hackathon. Welcome, Tamara, and it's good to have you here. I also have Hatim El-Otmani. Hatim El-Otmani is the founder of Atlas for Development. Hatim considers himself a community organizer, outreach expert. He engages in transgovernmental facilitation, and his main business is to ensure that then the communities have access to opportunities that are being run by governments or at the region, and they get to enjoy. Welcome, Hatim. With this panel, I'm going to then explore the conversation of assuming that all this that you have heard about is happening. What are some of the low-lying fruits? What are the challenges that young entrepreneurs are facing? And then we're also going to look at how we can begin to organize, take advantage of those opportunities. I will begin with you, Edith. Without exposing your trade secrets, could you please tell us some of the low-lying fruits that you've already identified as far as CFTA is concerned? Trade secrets that your business can take advantage of, or that you think other businesses can take advantage of, because I've seen different people introducing the kind of work they do. So what are some of those low-lying fruits?
Okay, thank you so much, first of all.
Maybe before you start, sorry, I need to alert everyone who's lifting up their hand that I'm going to give you a chance very shortly to ask your question, so don't get impatient. Proceed, Edith.
Okay, thank you so much, Stella. So I think I'll start off by saying that for me, what I do is quite simple. I run quite a few companies. That's why I say serial entrepreneur. But essentially, everything that I do is around creating jobs for young people and supporting entrepreneurs. So a lot of what Ariel for Africa in particular does is we work directly with entrepreneurs to help them access funding, access partnerships, scale beyond their borders, right? And sort of introduce not just intra-Africa, but also intra-continental or extra-continental trade, as it were. So I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and part of what we've really been working on or encouraging them to do is to take advantage of this free trade agreement. And because, again, I work in 12 African countries, I know that before how things were done versus now with the free trade agreement, there's going to be a major shift. But what does this shift mean? It basically means it's going to do a lot of sifting, you know. In Kenya we say, or in Swahili we say kuchunga. It's going to do a lot of sifting of the chaff versus the actual legit businesses. So what does this mean? It means now you're not just competing against your local person, right? So it's not just, say, Ghana versus Nigeria. Now it's become a full continental competition where there's export or import that's happening across the continent. So now a person doesn't have to settle for their next door neighbor. They can literally go for the best. So low-hanging fruit, or my major advice to entrepreneurs, to business owners, I'm going to share my details in the chat, don't worry. For all entrepreneurs or business owners or people who are players in industries, the major thing you need to remember is this: you need to refine your offering so that you are the best of the best in the continent. That's the only way you can take advantage of this agreement. And how have companies like ourselves done it? Well, we're very intentional, right, about partnerships. So when I talk about partnerships, I'm talking about it like this. I know there's been a lot of conversations around borders and tariffs and all these things, but something I want to introduce is the element of strategic alliances and franchises. So you don't necessarily have to be the Wanjiko consistently at the border being harassed, you know. You can use a different approach, and that's another low-hanging fruit, where you take advantage of strategic alliances and you use that so that you're not consistently knocking at the border, but rather you're actually taking advantage of having partners. For example, we have partners in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Ghana, in Ethiopia, right? And right now in Rwanda and Zimbabwe as well. So take advantage of that, set up strategic alliances so that they benefit and you benefit. The second thing is that Franchises. What does this mean? You can literally franchise your business so that, especially if you have a very unique, very diverse, very cutting edge idea, this is something that can be set up in another country and serve that country without you having to, cross borders. Another thing I'm also going to point out in terms of low-hanging fruit is that one way or another, Africans, we have to figure out how to start investing into entrepreneurship. Okay, so that's the only reason you have SMEs. 80% of the jobs are created, but we're only 50% of GDP. Why? Because SMEs are not being supported the way that they should be. And that's something I'm very passionate about. So when we're talking about investment happening across African countries, how do we make this something tangible? How do we make it such that we're moving away from the real estate, way of investing, and we're actually supporting businesses in a tangible way, because that's how Africa will grow. When we're saying manufacturing, the trade needs to increase, where do you expect business owners to get this money from? Please let me know, because it doesn't come from trees. I've been checking. So we need to make this very practical. We need to make investment. We need to make understanding of business owners very practical. They actually need to know how to take advantage of this agreement, because it will have fast mover advantage. If you're not at the front line, friend, you will miss it. Yeah, you will miss me, people like me who are far ahead. You'll miss us all. So you need to be in the correct circles. Okay, entrepreneurs, who are your circles? Don't stick by yourself. That's another low-hanging fruit. Get into African circles with other entrepreneurs and take advantage of those deals. A lot of money is being exchanged across intra-Africa relationships. Are you where the money is? Okay, friend, are you where the money is? But I'll put my info into the chat.
Thank you very much, Edith, for that input. I like the ideas that you're presenting. I hear you talking about strategic alliances and ensuring that you do not stretch yourself beyond your country, when you definitely can use the tentacles of other people in other countries that you're already connected to. Young people have been talking to each other across the borders. It's time for their businesses to also start enjoying that kind of network that they have. And there are a number of questions that I would want to ask you as follow-up questions, especially concerning that. One of the earlier speakers talked about intellectual property. I think it was Dr. Mburu, if I'm not wrong, talking about protection of intellectual property. How do you trust the other people? What are those things that you're going to put in place? I also hear you talking about product improvement, service enhancement, to ensure that we are ready for the kind of competition that is in the market. And I hear you talking about investing in entrepreneurship, and I think the speaker from AFDB, Dr. Ngure, specifically mentioned that there would be need to invest heavily in education as far as what needs to get into participating in business within the free trade area. I had conversations about investing in equities and capital for young people's businesses. But then I want you to mull over something as I move on to the other speakers that you're going to respond to later. One of the challenges that we have for most SMEs, and now that you mentioned them, is that they don't normally get past their second, third birthday. What guarantees do we have that with the higher risk premium in the continent that they're going to be able to take advantage of that? And what advice would you offer to them? As far as I'm concerned, I think you are one of the biggest, lowest lying fruit, because you advise businesses. But I'll come back to you. Tamara, you happen to be an enthusiast of agriculture. And one of the things that you pride yourself in is your ability to convince as many people to actually begin looking at agriculture as an employer and ensure that they're making produce and selling them in a broad market. So you established the Wagui app that is connecting farmers and markets. Now, when you're working within a small area, or within a country, it's very easy to regulate what happens within the online platforms or digital platforms. But the question I want to ask you is, what then happens when we move on to the broader free trade area, to the broader continental level? You know what people have done with digital market spaces. How do we guarantee safety, and what are some of the checks that people would have to put in place to ensure that then the entrepreneurs are not taken advantage of and the clients are also not taken advantage of? While you respond, you're also going to be speaking to, I think it was Efcft or somebody who was talking about an app that they have created called Yasmin Health that is supposed to help women with their reproductive health. I mean, with that kind of an app, users are going to be putting a lot of private data within that. And you know, data is the new gold. So what happens then in that kind of a space when you create an app in terms of security? Tamara.
Allô, est-ce qu'on m'entend? J'espère qu'on m'entend très bien. Je n'ai pas entendu la question parce qu'il n'y avait pas de... Est-ce que vous pouvez reprendre la question parce qu'il n'y avait pas de... Malheureusement, il n'y avait pas de traduction et donc je ne vous ai pas bien saisi.
I was supposed to make that apology to you when I began my session. Unfortunately, the translators logged off at 4 p.m. But I'm going to ask one of my colleagues, Kazeneza, who's on the call, to help me translate this question. Kaze, are you with us? Kaze?
Allô, est-ce qu'on m'entend?
Okay,
okay. Je vais remettre la participation originale. J'avais l'intention de répondre en français, mais je n'ai pas de traduction en français et donc je vais... Est-ce que vous pouvez reprendre la question, s'il vous plaît?
If I don't have Kaze, do I have another, maybe Sodfa on the call who can do the translation of the question? Kaze or Sodfa?
Yes, I can personally I can do it for her.
No.
Who's speaking?
I am Bangali Sila from Guinea.
Yeah, did you understand my question?
Yeah, and I know that I am bilingual. I understand French. I can.
So you understood my question. You can translate it to her.
Hello.
Did you understand my question?
Yes.
You want me to repeat it?
Yes, I said I understand the two languages, so
yes,
I can do the translation.
I'm asking if you understood my question or if I should repeat it.
Come again.
Should I repeat my question or you're able to translate it to her?
Yes, yeah. Repeat your question in order for me to translate her.
Yes, so my question was that she has established Wagui app, and Wagui app is an app she has created to connect farmers to markets. Okay, and I was also giving an example called Ifia on the call, who's saying they have established Yasmin Health, which is also an app that is connecting women to reproductive health services. So the question I'm asking, within the space of the digital market space, what kind of measures do we need to put in place to protect the entrepreneur from exploitation and to protect the clients that they serve also from exploitation within the free trade area?
Which kind of
measures can the CFTA put in place, or what kind of measures do we need to put in place to protect users of the apps that are being created to take advantage of the free trade area from being exploited, both the ones selling and the ones buying?
Quel est votre nom, madame, vous qui essayez de comprendre comment on appelle la question en français? Vous êtes là? Hello?
We can hear you.
No, can she hear me? The one that needs to
Tamara,
know
can
the
you hear?
meaning in French. Samana, vous m'entendez? Hello?
Tamara, I think you're muted.
Hello, can she hear me? Hello?
Can translate. She hear you.
Tamara, can you hear me? Okay, she can hear you now. Please.
Can you hear me?
Please, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Ok, elle essaie de dire que quand vous prenez par exemple, quelles sont les mesures qu'on peut prendre par exemple pour connecter les agriculteurs à au marché. Et au-delà de ça aussi, il y a eu des applications qui ont été mises en place. Qu'est-ce que AfCFTA peut faire pour protéger, comme on appelle, ces applications-là, et afin de connecter, comme on appelle, des acheteurs et les vendeurs dans le marché?
Ok, c'est vrai qu'il y a eu déjà des applications dans ce sens pour connecter les producteurs directement au marché. J'espère qu'on m'entend bien. Et
oui, moi je vous
l'innovation derrière, oui, donc l'innovation derrière Wagi, c'est que premièrement, on a misé sur le conseil agricole. Wagi, c'est d'abord une application qui a pour objectif de faciliter le conseil agricole parce qu'aujourd'hui, les plantations et les productions sont situées loin dans des zones rurales et souvent, lorsqu'il y a des problèmes sur ces plantations-là, il faut parfois attendre l'intervention d'un expert agricole ou d'un ingénieur agronome. Alors qu'aujourd'hui, les agriculteurs, quelle que soit dans la région dans laquelle ils se trouvent, ils puissent avoir un conseil spécifique plutôt, ou bien avoir accès à une réponse si jamais une de ces cultures a une maladie particulière. C'est la première innovation. La deuxième, c'est qu'on essaie de rendre accessible cette application en langue vernaculaire, en langue locale, pour encore donner plus de chances à ces producteurs-là d'augmenter leur production. Parce qu'encore là, c'est très important. On peut avoir de la production, mais avoir de très faibles rendements à l'hectare. Donc, c'est vraiment ça qui différencie cette solution des autres. Et aujourd'hui, avec ce marché commun, l'opportunité qu'on voit, c'est que notre application pourra être commercialisée facilement sur d'autres marchés en Afrique, dans d'autres pays, et quelles que soient les régions, que ce soit en Afrique centrale ou en Afrique de l'Ouest et de l'Est. Et on pense que la mise en place de ce marché commun va faciliter donc la création de partenariats, va faciliter donc la création, je veux dire, des synergies pour qu'aujourd'hui, bien qu'étant au Gabon et développant Wagi, on puisse avoir des personnes qui travaillent avec nous, mais qui sont situées en Éthiopie ou qui sont situées au Maroc. Donc, c'est dans ce sens que c'est intéressant pour nous, une initiative comme la zone de libre-échange.
I hope it is okay for everybody.
Thank you very much.
Can I try to translate? Or can I try to translate what she has said?
Yes, give us a summary.
Okay, she was saying that the software that she had created was made for that, to protect farmers, you know, and the most important for them is to make things work for every farmers in areas, mostly remote areas in Africa. And the second chance that they can have with this program is that, you know, they can work with those who are in Morocco, in Tanzania, and other regions of Africa. This is what she was saying. But the main purpose of the software is to protect farmers, mostly those who are in remote areas.
Thank you very much for that, Bangali.
That's all. That's the main idea of what she has said.
Thank you very much for that, the assistance you've offered. I really appreciate that. I'm going to bring in Hatim and just ask one question. Hatim, if you could share with us what are the kind of community engagement activities that we can engage in to popularize CFTA amongst the youth, and especially the most vulnerable youth who do not have access to the platforms that we are now enjoying, where we get to hear about the CFTA. Kindly share with us, what other, opportunities you can take advantage of in the community to do as much outreach as possible on CFTA. Hatim?
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. I hope my voice is clear.
Very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Stella. Thank you so much, ULEAD organization, for this kind invitation. to discuss, this crucial topic regarding the future of our continent and its link to youth development. You asked something really important about promoting the AfCFTA among young people, and this may lead me to the importance of having information. I think that information is a very powerful tool to really advance our continent and moving forward. And before diving into the subject, it is important to shed light on the context of the AfCFTA, because I have seen some of the on the chat that we are discussing about this, but why we are discussing about this. As you know, that Africa has its own development agenda, which is the Agenda 2063, that aims to make Africa more developed economically, socially, and of course with the respect to its natural resources and the environment. It's a master plan of 50 years to transform Africa into a global powerhouse of the future through a human-centered design approach. Now, with this in mind, we need to understand that it's a very vital that we know exactly what our Africa has as potential, where we want to go, and how we can get there. And the AfCFTA is among one of the top flagship projects, and it is linked also to the Aspiration 6 of the Agenda 2063, which envisions that the development of Africa needs to be driven by people and relying on people, and especially on youth and women. And we know that more than 60% of the African population is young, and this is, we have this boom of population of young people that Africa has a vibrant population, active population, a massive active citizens who can be a catalyst to rely and achieve the Africa we want. The youth, the question we should ask is not what benefits the AfCFTA to young people, but more importantly is how young people can take advantage of the AfCFTA. As you know, lately in the beginning of this year, we have the AfCFTA has been launched officially. And this, in my opinion, will open some doors to many young people, not only in terms of free movements, not only in terms of exchanging expertise and field of expertise by countries, but especially experience by exchanging experience with young people. We know that African youth are very innovative, are very creative. And even though we don't have the necessary sometimes means to bring into a reality our projects, our innovative ideas, but we surely want to network. We are very diverse in terms of expertise. We are very diverse in terms of ideas, of visions, which again give us the certainty that Africa is in safe hand if we really invest on young people. Therefore, before diving into that, I really invite young people to just go out there and learn more about what are your rights, what are your duties, because again, information is a very powerful tool for you to really do this step forward. And I remember one of the discussions I had with the ambassador at large of the Moroccan king, that youth are very creative in Africa because we used to live in many obstacles. Either it's political obstacles, social obstacles, and sometimes cultural obstacles. And because of this creativity, we learn how to go around these obstacles. So imagine if we can have a platform which enable us not only to go around these obstacles, but facing these obstacles with tools in terms of information, in terms of financial, in terms of mentorship as well. When we talk about that, we of course put the light on the importance of entrepreneurship and how this entrepreneurship can also help ascend the African continent to the next level through the AfCFTA. I hope I answered the question.
I would have wanted to hear more practical examples of what the young people in this platform can do in their communities to distribute information about CFT.
Sure. As you know, now with COVID-19, we tend to use more digital platforms. Digital platforms that allows people to do, some actions on the ground, concrete actions on the ground. I mean, virtually. And I think with that, I really may take an example of one of the actions we have led, which is the Academy 2063. A lot of people in Africa, they don't know the existence of the Agenda 2063, which is sometimes bothering me. Well, but that's fine because, there is some lack of communication around this Agenda 2063. So I have launched this initiative in Morocco, where I targeted just 3 cities in my hometown. And I started to talk about, the Agenda 2063. Young who were participating in this academy, they have understand well the Agenda 2063, the stake, the challenges, and why it is important for our continent. Then what we have asked from this participant to go out there and share what they have learned during this academy with other young people. So therefore, the information cannot be just within the participants, but of course to much share it with other people. With the second edition of the 2063 Academy has been launched in November on 2020. And with COVID-19, we tend to use it virtually, and we have opened it up to other African young people. So we had participation of 300 young from 44 African countries. And the idea again is to share. Now we had made some great partnership in which these young people, they had been given a small grant of $250, which is small, but again, it can create something. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to create a change. Otherwise I will be lying, but at least it will be, it will help them to empower other young people to share information, to help them to set their track on the right path.
I hear you, Hatim. I hear you talking about sharing information online as much as possible and taking advantage of all the opportunities that we all have to share on the platforms that we are on with the limitations of COVID-19. Allow me to go back to our first speaker, Edith. Edith, if you could just give me a brief response to the first question I had posed to you. What are the valuable guarantees that young people can actually be able to start taking advantage of? Or what mechanism can they put in place to ensure that then they kind of protect themselves from the high premium risk that are posed towards their businesses when they go into a wider space, considering that most of those businesses are already vulnerable within their small jurisdiction as we speak. Edith?
Okay, thank you for that, Stella. I think I will pretty much summarize it as this. When it comes to intellectual property, a lot of business owners don't understand how it applies to them. And they don't understand how their intellectual property, if they're offering it, say, through like strategic alliances, like I talked about, there's a lot of legalities that go into that. And that again becomes another revenue stream for you. That your intellectual property is an add-on. It should be more money for your business. But then when we say intellectual property here, tangibly, what are we talking about? What do you need to do? Number one, do not transact in any capacity without a non-disclosure agreement. And I say it again, if you do not have an NDA, do not do business, do not have a conversation until an NDA has been signed for both parties' protection. So that is something not maybe, if no, you have to do it as a business owner. And the good thing is that NDAs are things that once you have a template running for your organization, you can implement that with other people as you have more and more conversations. So that's one important piece. The next thing is to understand what applies to you. Are you on the copyright side? Are you on the patent side? Is the patent that you're applying for going to protect you just in your country, or does it go beyond? These are all things questions that are really important that you have to ask. So I'll use an example like for ourselves. For example, Ariel for Africa, we do a lot of programs for entrepreneurs, for corporate leaders, a lot with for example, the Nairobi Securities Exchange for financial literacy. But one thing is known about our programs, we have globally protected them. So it doesn't matter if you're in Singapore, if you're in India, if you're in Djibouti, it doesn't matter, we are protected. So again, it's important to know, right, where you fit into in these spaces in terms of intellectual property, and who can protect you, and what the costs versus benefits are again. The other thing is it's important to have some sort of legal support. And for business owners, this is a massive, massive, I know, expense. But again, that's why I keep saying, which entrepreneurial circles are you in? So part of like what we have been doing currently has been actually offering legal support to our entrepreneurs, because they can't afford, say, to go directly to a lawyer who will charge them how they want to charge them. But at the end of the day, guys, you need that legal understanding, right? You need that legal support. I keep saying there's no fire combination in terms of education, like someone who has studied business and has added in law. Like you're the best person. I wish I was like you. But there are, again, ways that you can learn and refine your knowledge. There are ways you can begin to draft your own MOUs, your own NDAs, and these are things that can hold up in court. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Edith. I think that's extremely important, especially for most of those businesses. We don't want them to attempt to take advantage of CFTA. And then you now start getting stories of them having died their natural death because they reached beyond their abilities. So I hear you talking about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, which I think is extremely important, making sure that you do not disclose secrets of your business unless you're ready and you have protection for the ideas. I hear you talking about patenting intellectual property, ensuring that before you announce to anyone, you have a way of demonstrating that you are the originator. And I hear you underscoring the importance of legal support for your work before you proceed. I mean, even if you're not going to retain a lawyer for a whole year, at least retaining them for the most important things like reviewing your contract, MOUs, and the likes. Hoping that the youth are taking tips so that they can be able to ensure that they protect themselves as they go out to take advantage of CFTA. I have hands that have been so long, some of them have even started calling my name on the chat. So I'll start with Emmanuel Gabriel, and then I'm going to allow Dual Peter Lam to ask a question or comment after that. Then I'll allow Chidi Ebere Zubilo in that order. Then we'll have Wesige Joram, and I think we can close that pack with Ali Rajab and Lance Awao. So Emmanuel, please don't take too long saying thank you for being allowed to be here. Just go straight to your question or comment.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm called Emmanuel Gabriel. Is my sound clear?
Very.
Yeah, I'm called Emmanuel Gabriel, the founder of the Ambaje Foundation. It's based in Akiva Refugee Settlement in Uganda. And we work and commit to help young refugees to understand that technology is the most important thing for the day lives in things of online businesses, or how they can sell products online. So the challenge is like, this is the first project to be hosted in most of the refugees communities and all over the refugee camps worldwide. And our project, it is among the first projects in refugees camps, mostly in Uganda. We started it in Akiva Refugee Settlement, and we are boosting up to see how we can reach out far in other camps. So the challenge is this. Most of the young people, like refugees or young immigrants, they have talents and skills in those of agriculture, skills, and most of the art, craft, how they can make shoes, how they can make chains using plastics, and how they can build houses using plastics, and how they can make other materials using plastics. And they mostly fail to get market and sell their products worldwide or in other countries in Africa, and their products still remains in the camp without being known around in other communities or in other cities or in other districts of the countries. And my question concerns.
As
I heard,
long and we have very little time.
Yeah, as I heard about the other is it Dr. Guru? But I don't remember the name, but she said like, yeah, she said like there are some of the funds which are supported, which be prepared to support most of the African projects or African what. So I was asking, is these projects like this of technology among those projects will be funded in the future? And how can we stand together to support these young refugees who have been talents like this and skills like this?
So Edith, you're going to help me answer that question. Let's hear from Dual Peter Lam. Dual Peter, please jump the introduction and just go straight to your question.
Okay, the question. Yeah.
We had your question, Emmanuel. I'm talking to Dual.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Dual. And thank you for your patience.
Okay, great. I have only two questions. I want to make them very quick. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My question number is, I will direct my question to AfCFTA. And the first question will be, how will the AfCFTA provide business opportunities that inherent industrialization in all African countries and in line with Agenda 2063? Did you hear my question?
I think you may need to type your question, Dual, because you're not very clear. Please type your question in the chat room. I'm going to read it on your behalf.
I can't hear you. Okay. I'm not sure if I can repeat the question if you think that. Can I repeat the question?
Type it, because your network is not good, so we won't hear it anyway. Type it, I'm going to repeat it.
All right.
Yes. The network is slow.
What? I can't hear you, please.
Your network is slow. Please type your question in the chat room.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
I don't know if Chidi Ebere lowered the hand, but I see Mwesige Joram, whose hand has also been up for a long time. Mwesige?
Thank you for the opportunity. I believe you can hear me loud. Well,
yes, we can.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Mwesige Joram. I work with free markets think tank called Action for Liberty and Economic Development in Uganda. My concern is about security. If trade is to happen in Africa, security must be guaranteed. And if you see today, there is insecurity between Uganda and Rwanda, Uganda and Kenya, I mean in terms of trade. And also there is political insecurity in South Sudan. If we are to relate that to trade, insecurity has always made trade impossible. And I implore African Union to look into that. If trade is to happen, the question of security must be guaranteed. Then secondly, there is the question of leadership in Africa. Africa leadership is occupied by vampires. I mean the heads of state act like vampires. Their policies are stealing from the people. They're stealing from businesses. That cannot make business prosper. The policies of too much taxes, making governance very big, cannot make government actually succeed. Then lastly, I implore limited government for Africa. Governments should be very small to make business prosper. Of course, when the government are too big, they get taxes from people. Government are not directly involved in trade. They are not productive, but they are consumers of wealth. They only do actually distribute wealth instead of creating wealth. Of course, I suggest that the government should get out of the people and out of business so that they can prosper. For that case, government owners should come and where contracts have failed where to protect people's property and oppose people's rights and liberties.
Masige.
Thank you very much.
Masige, allow me to stop you there. I don't know how much we can demand that government businesses, because at the end of the day, they're supposed to be regulators. But I hear you. You're saying that businesses need more support from governments to stand.
They should only come in to arbitrate, not to steal people's property.
That has been noted. I'm going to give the floor to Nala Suleiman. Nala Suleiman, please keep it short. And then Ali Rajab will be next. Nala Suleiman.
Yes, hello, how are you? Thank you for the opportunity. And thanks, Youth Africa Leader. My concern regarding the quality specification, I would like for the future as all African countries to have their own specification for quality. I mean the standardized specification. So any other European, Asian, whatever the areas out Africa would like to send us trade, they should consider that if they didn't reach these standards of specification, we will not get their items.
I hear you.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you very much
Thank
for that.
you.
It's extremely important, Nala, especially for those of us who have an eye for quality. We definitely want quality specifications so that the products that are being sold are not substandard. Ali Rajab.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, I'm Ali Rajab from Kenya, and I'm from this, CDP. It's a CBO, and my question comes from other trade. How are other cost people from Mombasa are being able to get a
We lost you there. Ali, we lost you, and because we don't have time, please type your question in the comment section. I'll read it on your behalf. While you're typing your question, I need to read something that has been written by Robinson Elijah here. It says, 2 issues begging for my attention. 1, manufacturing and extractive industries would naturally play a key role in Africa-wide trade. Not much seems to be stressed on the overriding need to invest in human capital development, with special emphasis on upskilling the technical expertise to produce globally competitive products and provide the needed technological leadership to drive the robust continental economic integration project and develop Africa into the global powerhouse of the future. The second issue, he says, is that the AU and various national governments of African countries need to pay special attention to the technical development components in the overall trade engagement. He thinks nations with technical skills surplus should also be able to support nations hit with skill deficit to drive their industrial sector. I couldn't agree with you more, Robinson, especially on number 2. We definitely need to support each other with skills, even as we open up the space for everyone else to trade. Lansa Wao, you are next. Lansa Wao, you are next.
Hi, thank you so much. I'll go right into my question. My question is, the panelists have spoken about the innovations, the different policies that are available in terms of trade, and how the youths or social entrepreneurs can take advantage of the same. My question is, how can we integrate the aspect of communication in all these activities to ensure that the innovations, the provisions, the policies come to a level of understanding of every African that is interested in trading interborder or even worldwide? How can we make the higher level or to the point of the local person understanding all these documents, all these good policies in a way that they can use to actually grow the continent? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. Hatim, you're going to help me answer that question at some point. The question Lansa is asking is, how do you popularize all these tools and make sure that they're packaged in a simple language that everyone is able to understand? Mutiu Ulawi. Mutiu Ulawi, keep it short.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my idea. We appreciate those who have contributed. My own part is just the area of the sensitization, which has been mentioned. The aspect of the mass sensitization of people through local media, especially radio station, because that's the aspect I feel will give people the opportunity to convey their message. What are we doing as this platform specifically towards engaging the youth in the media to sensitize the African youth? Thank you.
Okay, and also for that question, Hatim, you're going to help me respond to it. What are we doing to engage the youth, especially in mainstream media and social media, to understand and begin participating in the AfCFTA? I will give Tobias Nauruki and Oriman Gwaza very quick opportunities to just make a quick input. Please don't repeat a question that has already been asked.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stella. My question is goes to the speakers of the day. We have so many youth who have the skills in different fields, both in agriculture and in industries. How are we making use of this youth in reaching out to the communities in the rural areas to be able to empower them and educate them on the best skills and technology that are supposed to be used in production, so that we don't depend on the imports we get outside Africa? I think when we do that, it is going to be very nice. I would like the speakers and the model of the day to answer that question. Thank you so much.
Noted. Now, Ruki Oriman Gwaza, quickly. Keep it short.
Thank you for the opportunity. I guess you are hearing me.
Very well.
Okay. I would want to say here that I think it has come to that point where Africa as a continent needs one currency, because we're talking about trade fairs here and then youth empowerment in terms of entrepreneurship skills. So where we are going to have trade fairs where African countries are coming together. The issue of change, bureau de change, sometimes hinders so many persons to make exploits during the trade fair. And the aim of this trade fair is not just for buying and selling. It's a way of connecting with people from other countries within the region. That is the one aspect. The other one again is, it is high time we leave the issue of the policy, the white paper policy on paper. Let us practicalize the things we say. For instance, this kind of forum we are having online right now, the data or the information you are gathering here should be put into a document form and see how you can present it before the African Union to forge the way forward. Because by and large, what we have today is our leaders, all they know is to borrow huge sums of money from the World Bank. And then when they go, they leave chunks of debt for the next government. And when the next government comes, they're also going to borrow. So what we are doing in Africa is we are only working for the European countries to be milking us from our resources. We are not balancing. So I think it has come to that point.
Thank you, Oriman. Thank you, Oriman. Allow me to stop you. Your point is made. Joel Peter was asking, he says he's a South Sudanese social activist, entrepreneur, and student in Cairo, Egypt. And his question is, what strategy will the AfCFTA apply to make sure that the youth from the African unstable countries where there's still an ongoing violence like his country, South Sudan, benefit from the program? I don't know if we still have someone from AfCFTA here. And he's also asking, how will AfCFTA provide business opportunities that enhance industrialization in all African countries in line with Agenda 2063? Dual, I think your question 2 is what we have been answering since the beginning of this meeting. So I don't know if we really want any more answers to that. I'm going to give the last opportunities to speak to Keith and Dere, and if there's any lady left who wants to speak. If there's no lady, then Keith will be the last speaker. Keith, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Stella, and good afternoon, rest of the colleagues. I would like to make a contribution in submission to what the rest of the speakers have said. I think we need to urgently, build solidarity in advocacy efforts, because this process will take a lot of advocacy actions, and we need to build that solidarity so that we can keep ourselves accountable. I think transparency and accountability through this process is very key. And accountability for me, Stella, is both vertical and horizontal, that we as youth need to also be accountable to young people, because we stand as youth leaders and representative of young people, in such forums, but we are not accountable to also our key people. As I contribute, my key questions perhaps that I would like to also hear from the colleagues are on two things: payment gateway and also the national foreign policies. Because I think as governments, we all have our national policies that also have this diplomatic angle to it, and how does that play into this AfCFTA in regards to the opportunities that governments can push within the regional blocks. Lastly, what are the roles of RECs, and how can we again engage the RECs, the regional blocks, so that they still remain relevant in the implementation of these projects? Thank you so much, Stella.
Thank you very much for that, Keith. I think accountability is key, and definitely we need to work quite closely around that. Allow me to give my panelists a chance to comment on your questions and also make their closing statements. I'll start with you, Hatim. Your thoughts on the two questions I'd asked you to help me respond to.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, thank you again, dear participants, for these valuable questions. I have written down some things that you have stated. I will start by one of the participants who say that our African leaders are vampires. I think this is a very strong statement, because why? Our African youth envoy, ex-youth envoy Ayeshabi, she led a major discussion on the importance of having intergenerational dialogues. Because I believe that we have this huge generational gap between leaders and young people. And I think that this is a very crucial thing, that we need to bridge that gap, the generational gap, through this intergenerational dialogues. So maybe I could invite, that person to lead intergenerational dialogues in his community, and to engage young people and local decision makers into that. So you can bridge the gap, and you can express, of course, your opinion, and maybe you will be surprised by the answers you will be having as well, and the results of this action. Regarding the technical skills and communication, when we talk about technical skills, because the AfCFTA is bringing a lot of opportunities for young people, especially in terms of entrepreneurship. And the question we should ask is, are we ready for that? I might be a bit pessimist and say, unfortunately, not as we're supposed to be, because yes, we have a bunch of ideas, we have a bunch of creativity, but yet we have a lack of information regarding tools and mechanism of entrepreneurship. And especially with Africa has a huge digital divide, I think that, what we need first to know, and we need first to learn, is how we can raise awareness about what is entrepreneurship, what do we need, what are the steps we should really take from the idea, from the prototype, from the marketing, from communication, and so on. So these are some necessary skills that young people should have, to be ready for this big transformation that our continent knows. Especially that, of course, it's not our own responsibility as well, because here, and especially in rural areas, a lot of people, they have lots of creations, lots of initiatives that maybe not documented as they should be. And now the government should really integrate these ideas and this response plan, and support the young people to scale up their prototype, and maybe why not brought it to the market as well with the AfCFTA. The last thing is the communication aspect. I'm not sure if the AfCFTA has built a communication plan to involve young people to promote the African continental free trade area. But what I might say to close this is, we should not wait for the others to do something for us. We should do things by us and for us. You have an incredible platform. You have an incredible sample, an example, which is the U-led organization. They are young people who have led this, seminars and workshops and discussion about the African Free Trade Area. They didn't wait for the others to organize that. They have done it, as young people. Because they are motivated, but for you as well. So you can take as well, this kind of initiatives. The last point is the speaker who is with us, she has launched an application, and she used local language to make people maybe close to the digital world. And for that, it's an incentive for you as well to use simple language to reach out to other young people. Start just by your neighbor, next to you, just by your friend next to you. Go there and amplify your voices. And remember that information is power. As much as you share it, as much as you become more powerful. Thank you so much, Stella. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Hatim, for that. I am going to invite Tamara to make her closing statement. Bangali, if you could please help me translate to Tamara that she can make her closing statement.
Tamara, vous êtes là? Tamara, bonsoir. Stella, can you hear me, right?
Yes. Je suis là.
Ok, parfait, Tamara. Parfait. Et désolée, je sais très bien que vous êtes là à attendre et j'espère que vous avez eu la chance de comprendre un peu les questions que les participants ont partagées. Donc, maintenant, c'est juste pour donner des remarques conclusives autant que nous sommes en train de finaliser la consultation. Merci beaucoup, Tamara.
Ok, bon, mais en termes de propos de conclusion, ce que je voulais dire, c'est qu'il faut qu'aujourd'hui la jeunesse africaine ou encore les entrepreneurs africains soient proactifs. Ça veut dire qu'il faut aller chercher l'information, il faut chercher à savoir ce que aujourd'hui ce marché commun peut nous apporter en tant qu'entrepreneur. Aussi, j'insiste sur la compétitivité, parce qu'aujourd'hui, c'est un grand marché, il y aura énormément de compétition. Et donc, pour mettre toutes les chances de son côté, il faut être compétitif, donc s'informer et se former pour pouvoir s'arrimer donc aux besoins des marchés des autres pays, pour pouvoir produire, donner des produits de qualité, pour pouvoir respecter les lois et les règlements en vigueur dans chacun des pays différents. Et aussi, ce que je peux rajouter, c'est qu'on peut avoir toute la volonté du monde, mais après, s'il n'y a pas de mécanisme d'accompagnement, s'il n'y a pas de mécanisme de soutien de la part des gouvernements, s'il n'y a pas une réelle volonté de changer les choses de la part du gouvernement, malheureusement, on ne pourra pas atteindre les objectifs de cette zone de libre-échange. Donc, c'est un appel aussi à nos gouvernements, faciliter donc les investissements, protéger donc les entrepreneurs, la propriété intellectuelle, pour collaborer en matière de questions douanières et aussi, et important, aligner les politiques locales à toutes les décisions qui ont été prises dans le cadre de cette zone de libre-échange pour qu'il y ait une sorte d'harmonisation et que ce soit facile de pouvoir donc profiter de cette zone. Parce que si les décisions qui sont prises au niveau de la zone de libre-échange ne correspondent pas aux réalités de nos pays, il y aura énormément de freins dans cette mise en œuvre. Et donc, j'encourage beaucoup nos gouvernements à faire preuve de volonté et à nous, les jeunes, à faire preuve de proactivité. Et voilà. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Tamara, for that. And we are very sorry we did not have translation during the session. Please forgive us for that. We'll do better next time. Edith, please help me take this home with the two questions I requested you to support me in answering and your closing statement.
Okay, perfect. I think I'll start with the one that was around tech funding with the agreement, and whether tech is one of the spaces that can access funding. And then he also tied that in with helping refugees with tech. My answer is absolutely yes. We are in an age of a lot of disruption. So the other years that experienced the most disruption or disconnection aside from COVID-19 is when we had the financial crisis. And if you look at the companies that emerged from the 2007, 2008, it's a lot of the Airbnbs, the Ubers, the etc. So in this same crisis, quote unquote, that we're in, the companies that will tend to do well are the ones in the tech space, or business owners that are finding ways to leverage on technology to take their business to the next level or space. And in terms of funding in the tech industry, what I'll say is, guys, there's a lot of money for business owners in tech and for people who are coming up with innovations around technology. And we realize this because as Ariel for Africa, we've partnered with Google as well as with AWS and with Microsoft. And we've been having monthly competitions where founders can access funding. So every single month, we're in a different city, from Nairobi, Kigali, etc. And we're having these competitions to ensure that at the end of the day, founders are walking away with tools as well as funding for them to actually implement tech. So this is not just jargon that I'm saying, this is something we have been working on and implementing. But another thing that's happening is you have a lot of companies, global companies, so the Microsoft, etc., when we sit in conversation with them, they're saying we don't have enough talent. We don't have enough young people in the tech space for our organizations. And I'm saying we have so much talent in Africa, a lot of jobless young people. But the issue is there's a disconnect. So again, that's something we're really working on to remedy and to almost form that connection, because there are a lot of companies that want to support founders who are leveraging on technology. So I'll say that in terms of that. The second thing is, I think I heard someone mention payment gateways. Nowadays, you have a lot of players like iPay, for example, and they're now providing payment gateways for business owners. So if you're transacting, again, across different African countries, they're able to cover you where their payments are secure. They have a lot of options from cards to M-Pesa, Momo, etc. So those are things, again, that you can take advantage of, but payment gateways are a major thing. And then I think you also mentioned in terms of funding, how people can do the equity element, right? So when it comes to equity investment, both as the investor and as the person asking for money, what is the valuation, okay? Africans, please know the valuation of your companies. Don't just sit around. If someone asks you, put a dollar amount to your business, you should be able to actually value your company based on its current state, but then also projecting 5 years into the future. So know your valuation. Number two, also know there are other options. We're not talking about investment. It's not just equity. You know, equity is not like a god. There are other options. There's convertibles, there's crowdfunding now, there's also grants and things like that. But then also elements or ways that you can also take advantage of crowdfunding, where you're giving a product and then you're getting funding. So you can use that across the African continent as well. So there's quite a lot. But then in terms of, you also mentioned SMEs, how to stay in the game because they're dying by year 2. This is absolutely true. And part of the main issues for this is always funding, the business knowledge, revenue streams. A lot of them, they run out of cash, so they fall out of business, they give up. Team as well, so they don't have that hard entrepreneur skin. You know, you need a special type, like a gorilla or like, I don't know what sort of skin to be able to survive in business. And then also, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, competition and staying competitive and forever being above your competitors. And that, again, comes through value, right? At the bottom line, it's value and creating the most possible value in a market that's overcrowded, but again, showing your uniqueness. So I will say this, again, these are things that we work with on Founders every single day, but know your value, communicate your value, be very careful on your revenue streams, okay? Because whether or not you stay in business is all about, are you making money? And for a lot of you, you have very good ideas, but you're in the wrong market. So that's why the agreement is very good for you, because you might have come up with something and you're struggling in Zimbabwe, but you're supposed to be in Morocco. So again, take advantage of the agreement to understand the different African markets and whether your product is actually necessary for those markets. And then again, like I always say, especially in a time like COVID-19, business owners are not struggling because there's no cash flow. They're struggling because your product is, or a service is nice to have. It's not a need to have. Right now, when people are cutting down on their expenses, are you a need to have business owner? Or are you providing a need to have product or services? So I will encourage you by saying this, the agreement is here for you. It's not about government. Get away from that mentality. This agreement will be made or broken by SMEs, by business owners, by people in private sector. Government is not going to be at the border with you when you're trying to get your goods across. So understand the space that you're in. Know your stuff. Know your legislation. So that when you're getting there, they can't compete with you because you have all your facts. The other thing is, it's not again about the leaders. The leaders have come up with the documentation. It's nice, but at the end of the day, it will not be implemented unless, as business owners, you understand what you need to do. You understand how to take advantage of it. And again, you enter spaces where this is a conversation that's being implemented, okay? So again, that's why I keep saying, who's in your circle? Who's in your entrepreneur grouping? Are you actually being held accountable to scale, to expand, to take advantage of new revenue streams? So you are the agreement, okay? There's no agreement, there's no government. I had people saying, oh, government, this, that. Me, I gave up on them a very long time ago. You are government, you are agreement, you are African free trade, everything, you. So you get into the market and you do the work and you stand out. That's the only thing I can tell you there.
Thank you very much, Edith. Your energy is what we needed for this last session of the day. My sincere appreciation to the entire panel, to her team, Otmani, for your contribution on outreach and what we can do to ensure
my question has not been answered.
To appreciations to Tamara and her contribution to the conversation, even though we did not have translation when she was contributing, but really appreciate your contribution. My appreciations to you, Edith, for actually wrapping it up very well for us and reminding us that this agreement is us, and without people, we cannot get the agreement working, because the agreement is supposed to be, made to work by people. I also hear you telling young people that they must ensure that they have a competitive edge when they come into this space, and ensure that their businesses are interacting with the right people, operating within the right circles. We really, really appreciate your contribution to this conversation, and especially at the last panel of the day, you have kept the energy quite high. I understand that there are people who feel like their questions have not been answered, or there are people who still wanted to speak. I see Adenia, Deyemo, Migabo, Blaze, who wanted to speak. Akram Hano has that hand up. Please, please, please leave your comments on the comment section. Leave your questions on the comment section. This conversation is not ending. This conversation will proceed, and there's much, much more that we can actually discuss concerning this topic, and we cannot finish it within the day. Moses, it's called Musa Kone, was asking what are the next steps after this conversation. One of the things that we're doing is to compile all the outcomes of the consultation into a scoping report. A lot of consultations have been going on in the last 1 month. There are interviews with key informants that have also taken place, as you were informed at the beginning of this meeting. And we have had an extensive conversation today where a lot of information has come out. All that information will go into a scoping report that is going to be shared with all of you, who are going to read, validate. If there's anything you wanted to say about the matter that has not been documented, you shall then give us your comment and we shall incorporate it at the time. The next steps would then be to now put in place the mechanisms that we have been trying to discuss with her team today, and also the ideas that have come up from the audience on how we can get as many young people understanding the CFTA process and taking advantage of it, how we can link them up to the right opportunities, the right connections, the right networks, and then of course, provide opportunities for them to get equities or support financial support to be able to support their businesses to reach the areas they want to reach. So there are many steps coming ahead, but the next step, the most immediate step is that we're going to be sharing with you a scoping report coming out of all these consultations. If your opinion is not, then we'll add it. We have taken all your contacts in the chat room. We are saving this entire conversation. You must have been notified that this conversation is being recorded. So all of you are going to receive a copy of this report and you can give us your comments by then. We have been live streaming on Facebook. We have been live streaming on YouTube. If there's anything you would have badly wanted to talk about today that you did not get a chance to talk about, my suggestion is that you go onto that chat space and comment, add those comments there. We will definitely review all those comments and ensure that everything that comes out of that conversation finds its way into the report. Having said that, allow me at this point to also acknowledge the fact that Dr. Ngure managed to stay with us all the way to the end of the meeting. We really appreciate your presence here. We are very grateful that you actually were patient enough to listen to the end of the meeting. I know you're a busy person and there are many other things you could have been doing now, but you stayed with us throughout the meeting. So Dr. Ngure, we really appreciate you. We appreciate the remarks you have made, the encouragements you have given to the youth, and the support that you have given by staying all the way to the end of the meeting, even though we have largely exceeded our time. I also want to acknowledge the presence of one of our partners from Commonwealth London, Amy Longland, who has been with us throughout the entire conversation. Amy Longland, we appreciate you. We may not have had a conversation with you today, but we appreciate your presence here. And we'll be happy to explore with you any opportunities that you think Commonwealth would want to take advantage of in this conversation. With that, I'm going to request that anybody who still has their hand up, please, if you could lower it and just type whatever comment it is you have on the comment section so that we don't leave without your comment. Thank you very much for that. I think this is a good time to close the poll, Franklin. I don't think we're going to project the answers today. We'll just need to close the meeting because we have over-exceeded our time.
Yes.
Beatrice, if you have a nice video to escort us out.
MC Benny. Come on, East Africa. It's a party. Tell them. Afrika Mashariki. Twaja pamoja.
From country to country, yeah. We gotta work together. We are leaders now. Aiming high for the better. Together. To make our nations greater. Our sharing to empower. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people. With ability, here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need. Together transform our community as we see light and a bright future. Let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and women. Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana, vijana vijana kutoka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini? Vijana wote.